Mayor Allen, it's now 6:30. You may start the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Maude Chapman. Could I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, good evening. Councillor Moore sends her regrets. She will not be able to in attendance this evening due to illness. I wanted to start by extending once again our thoughts and prayers continue to be given for the pain, suffering, and inhumanity in Ukraine being caused by the Putin war. Many initiatives are happening by Canadians to try to help, with a recent example being the Springwater resident and retired OPP Staff Sergeant Kathleen Doherty, who just returned from a 3-week voluntary deployment in Ukraine to assist fleeing refugees through the Global Medic Organization. Please continue to consider any ways of providing support in this tragic situation. Due to COVID-19, Council continues to take the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. As such, members of Council and staff are participating in the meeting electronically, and the meeting is being live streamed. Residents can watch the meeting live on the Township website at www.springwater.ca, or they can listen to the meeting live from a telephone by calling 647-558-0588 and using the ID 854-0044-8161. This option is available only during the meeting, and for those unable to watch the live stream, they can review the meeting at their convenience by watching the video on the Township's YouTube channel. Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none, I'd like to start at 3.1 in the agenda. I'd like to acknowledge and welcome the Huronia West OPP Detachment Commander, Lee Gilfoy, who is with us virtually this evening. I want to give you a bit of background about Detachment Commander Lee Gilfoy. She was appointed on March 22nd, 2022 to the position. And Detachment Commander Gilfoy has over 30 years of policing experience, having started her career with the Toronto Police Service, followed by the Orangeville Police Service until its amalgamation with the Ontario Provincial Police, OPP, in 2020. She has operational, administrative, and leadership experience in areas including uniform patrol, traffic management, criminal investigations, major crimes, drug investigations, undercover operations, executive administration, professional standards, duty inspector, staff development, planning, strategy, management, business finance, and detachment operations. Detachment Commander Gilfoy is a former Deputy Chief of the Orangeville Police Services and Zone Director for the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. She is also the current chair of the Ontario Women in Law Enforcement Advisory Council and a member of the OPP Sexual Harassment Prevention Project. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from McMaster University and an honors diploma in Human Resource Management from Humber College. She is a graduate of the Rotman Police Leadership Program and the FBI-LEEDA Trilogy of Police Leadership Program. She is the recipient of the Police Exemplary Service Medal. I now welcome Detachment Commander Gilfoy to say a few words to us, please. You're muted there. There we go.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. I'm new to the Zoom. Well, hello, everyone. Nice to meet you finally. I'm looking forward to the day when we can meet in person. Obviously, your worship has introduced me and told you how great I am, so I don't have to say that. But I am so excited to be here. I live in this community. I'm looking forward to working with you to help you solve any community issues that you might find. I'm looking forward to coming to your community events and being a part of the solution to any of the issues that may be plaguing your community. I know that, or our community, I guess I can say. I know that traffic enforcement has always been an issue, and we've recently here at Huronia West implemented 2 traffic complaints officers to deal with some of the traffic complaints that you have within your towns, as well as we have a detachment out there that can help with dealing with any other issues that you may have. Is there any questions that you want specifically for me to talk to? I don't have to introduce myself now.
Well, certainly we will be having lots of questions as we proceed through meetings, and look forward to the time when we can meet you in person. Council, is there any comment or question that you want to pose at this time? Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Mayor. And Inspector, thank you for taking the time to come and join us and talk with us. It's been a while since somebody from Huronia West has done so. I don't want to give you a complaint, but I just want to pass on to you some of the stuff that you may want to be aware of. At one time we had a policing committee. That's gone by the wayside. I'm not sure we did a lot to help the residents as far as enforcement of traffic and so on, but it was a venue for them to pass on their complaints. And we had the odd time an OPP representative would attend and take that information back, and I think it did help. So it's just something for you to think about in the future. I should share with you, though, I'm in Ward 5, which is the greater Midhurst area, if you like, and one of the major complaints that I get is the lack of visible policing, no proactive patrols, if you like, and response times. Those are 2 of the major complaints I get out of it, of course, than speeding. And one thing that we did my first term of council, we had a number of thefts from people's parked cars. So the detachment, the commander at the time, agreed, and the auxiliary police officers, a couple of them, walked through the community for a few days on weekends, putting notices on cars if they found them on open or unlocked, and also talking to people and putting safety stickers or whatever on doors. So that was very, very well received, and I'm just sharing those things with you as something you might want to consider going forward.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I'm glad that you brought this up. So I'm meeting next week. We are meeting with the Central Region to talk about our numbers of police officers within our detachment. We have grown tremendously in the last 10 years, and we are continuing to grow, but our allotment of police officers has not grown. So we are looking to increase the number of police officers that we have in our communities to better meet the needs of the community in terms of safety. Response times are always an issue when it comes to, because we don't really subscribe to an actual time that we get to the way that policing works is that calls are put into a priority listing. So your higher priorities would be the things that people would be, if there's a threat to someone's health and safety, we would go to those first. So a theft from a vehicle per se might be lower on the priority. It may take us longer to get there. So when it comes to a community, especially as large as we have here, we have the 3 communities. We have Springwater, Clearview, and Wasaga Beach. It would be managing the higher priority calls, the public safety calls, before we would get to like a theft from a motor vehicle or a noise complaint or those kind of calls. So when you're talking response times, you're looking at it's different for a priority 1 call than a priority 5. So it's hard to say how long it would take for an officer to get to an area. But if we had more officers on the street, then we obviously those times would go up. Theft from vehicles is always a problem. We always have to make sure that we lock our vehicles. It is something that people drive into communities and go from car to car to car, checking to see if they're locked. And unfortunately, we don't often think to lock our cars because we leave sunglasses, we leave change, we leave expensive stuff in our car. So that is something that we try to. We have lock it or lose it plans through the media that they put out, and as well we will get our auxiliaries to go out and do some safety planning that way too. We have just our auxiliary unit over the last year during COVID had depleted. So we just brought it up to 9 auxiliaries from 3 or 4 is what we had previously. So that in the last couple months, we brought that up. So hopefully we'll have even more auxiliaries by the summer, and we can start that process again. Any kind of community safety issues, of course, we'll use them as to increase visibility in our communities as well.
Councillor Cabral.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Inspector Gilfoy. Very nice to have met you this way. I'm up in Ward 1, which is the Elmville area, so welcome. I just was curious on what is, and I know it's going to vary across the province, but in an area such as ours, which does have a good number of people and settlement areas, what is our current police to public ratio for the OPP, and how does the OPP compare to the other local, well, I guess the only other local ones would be South Simcoe and Barrie regarding that particular ratio?
So they do not subscribe to the cop to pop ratio that a lot of the municipal services subscribe to. So I don't know exactly what that number is. I did figure it out a little while ago when I was trying to bring our numbers up to what our population is. So I can't actually give you a number of what it is currently. I think the last Stats Canada is obviously from 2016, so that's not.
That would be an aggregate across the board too.
Right.
Do you know what that number was?
You know what, I'd have to sit down and figure it out. But for what it's worth, like our area has increased tremendously over the last few years, especially with COVID and people moving out of the city. So I would imagine that ratio has increased significantly over the last couple of years. So I could probably figure it out and get back to you if you want.
I just thought it might be a useful number if you're looking for more staff, more personnel.
Yeah, that was one of the numbers I was using to say, hey, listen, we need to really staff up our people for not only for their wellness, but for the community's wellness as well. And I must say, in Ward 1, you have the best bakery in our whole place here, right?
Thank you. Apparently it was on a TV show not too long ago.
Yeah, it's got the best 7-berry pie.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. All right, then. Well, we look forward to working with you, Inspector, and thank you for coming and introducing you to us this evening.
Thank you. And I can be reached at any time. I believe you have my number if you want to share it with the staff and all the counselors. You can text me or call me, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Have a good meeting.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Next, we move on to deputations 3.2, and I understand this item has been withdrawn by the delegator for this evening. So then we move on to question period, where members of the public are invited to ask questions of council or make comments regarding an item on the agenda. Those wishing to submit questions or comment for question period have the options of emailing the clerk with the subject line reading question period for submission, or the details of which are on the agenda this evening, or they can submit a request to make an oral submission by noon of the day of the meeting by emailing the clerk as well with the details on the agenda. Clerk Ainsworth, have there been any submissions received for this evening?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There have been 4 submissions received for this evening. 3 of the submissions pertained to the delegation that was withdrawn from item 3.2. I did reach out to the residents who submitted the questions and comments to see if they would like to continue with their questions. I was able to reach Ms. Atkinson, who stated she would still like her questions to be posed. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to reach Mr. Ritchie or Mr. Spring, so I will go ahead and read their submissions as they were expecting it to be as part of the meeting this evening.
Okay.
The first submission is from Mary Lynn Atkinson at 49 Willow Landing. And she states, what is the purpose of a green zone buffer? When was the area at Wilson and Sunnydale designated as a buffer? Why was it designated as a buffer? And is the purpose the same for the green zone buffer on Bayfield?
Okay, we'll pause and turn that over to Director Spagno, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So just to answer the first question, the Greenbelt zone is referred to as the Greenbelt Buffer policy area. And basically the buffer area was established pre-Springwater to essentially avoid and reduce the potential for future annexations of the city of Barrie. What the Greenbelt Buffer does is it restricts new non-agricultural uses from being established within 1 kilometer from the boundary of the city of Barrie into Springwater. The purpose again of which is to avoid having urban type development abutting the urban boundary. And the original intention was to avoid future annexations. Now it's more commonly required in the official plan so that there's a clear distinction and separation between urban and rural. And with respect to Ms. Atkinson's question about the purpose on Bayfield, it carries the same purpose on the Bayfield Street, in the Bayfield Street area. And just so that so council's aware, the Greenbelt spans right across or along the city of Barrie boundary and also the town of Wasaga Beach. So there's a fairly large land area that this does pick up. And I believe that that answers Ms. Atkinson's questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Ainsworth.
The second submission was received from Dave Spring at 2451 County Road 92, and he writes, I am writing to you with concerns with item number 3.2 on the agenda for the council meeting on April 6, 2022. The request for a ministerial zoning order for land owned by Snow Valley Yorkwood Limited raises some major concerns for community members and farmers. This process directly circumvents the proper planning procedures that are already in place. This appears to me to be a way to fast track an application with the potential for nothing more than direct financial gain for the applicant. What checks and balances to ensure that what is being applied for is going to be taking place? Could this potential be a plan to just rezone and sell? If council is not prepared to follow the regular checks and balances that are currently in place for development, why bother even having them? This also doesn't give the community, neighboring residents and farmers the platform to raise specific concerns with the proposal. This area is also predominantly residential / agricultural area, and I feel it is important to allow those residents and farmers time and the platform to comment on their concerns. This land in question is excellent farmland in the green buffer zone, and yes, may someday be developed, but why take viable food production farmland out of production when Springwater has multiple alternative sites available that are already zoned industrial? The rationale of saying these properties are not sufficiently serviced doesn't cut it. If upgrades are needed, that is just a cost of doing business. Good farmland in the township is shrinking all the time due to constant development. Has the agricultural community been consulted on this proposed MZO? The reduction of hard to find and good food producing land is becoming a major concern in agricultural production in the township and province as a whole. I feel like these MZOs should not be for industry, but health and education only. Also, as chair of the Agricultural Advisory Committee, I find it troubling that this potential development has not been brought to our attention. As recently as last fall, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about the specific green buffer, which this property belongs to, and this wasn't brought back to the committee for comment after the first presentation in September. I also struggle to understand why this proposed project seems to have members of council lobbying for support. As a resident and taxpayer, I find this very troubling. This seems to be going forward without any public input and totally ignores normal municipal processes. I implore the council to respect the residents of Springwater Township and refuse to entertain any form of support for an MZO as requested by this deputation. Residents of Springwater must be informed and provided every opportunity to have input, and any support of this deputation would rob them of that right and leave them with no voice in a process that they have every right to be aware of. Please, I urge you not to support the MZO request.
Thank you. Next.
The next submission is from Robert Kenneth Bastian of 2334 Castles Drive, and he states, "Good evening, members of council and the public. These are general observations and suggestions to improve the experience and expedite the process for people like myself and others involved with the planning, building, and zoning departments. Township staff should approach the public and builders with the attitude of helping to get things accomplished as opposed to obstruction, which serves no purpose. Various comments indicate to me that this is how some township staff view the public, very much an us and them attitude. Communication is a major issue, and I and others are faced with. The difficulty getting emails returned and relatively simple questions answered wastes considerable time for both township staff and the public. It is unreasonable for emails not to be answered or only answered after more emails and phone calls, producing unnecessary work for all concerned. In discussions with various people in the industry locally, this is universally frustrating. Suggested improvements. All emails should be responded to by end of business day. This may require someone whose function is responding to emails for part of the day, with the more complex ones responded to by whomever the specific staff member specialist is. Also by the end of business day. Once this becomes the standard and is reached, there will be less emails because the need to send duplicates will be greatly reduced. Another issue is knowing the state of various applications and reports and what is outstanding or needs further information. This includes email and phone calls between various levels of government simply to find out the state of affairs at the NVCA or other agency, fees paid or outstanding, forms and applications required, filed, paid, etc. Suggested improvement. This is the case where IT can be used to save large amounts of time. Each project should have an online file and checklist that shows what documents are required and the status indicated in checkboxes. An example, filed, fee paid, approved, etc., as necessary. This checklist would be accessible by the builder, city staff, and others given access like NVCA, the MTO, engineers, architects, etc. An online resource like this would eliminate calls and emails when people just want basic information like this, and the same issues would not be repeatedly discussed. Thank you for hearing me. I would be happy to discuss these and other issues further in the future.
Thank you. And the next one.
The last submission is from Doug Ritchie at 1345 Floss Road 10 West. And it's regarding item 3.2, the proposed Springwater Business Park delegation. This presentation proposes that council support a ministerial zoning order for lands located at the corner of Sunnydale Road and Wilson Drive. These lands are prime agricultural lands that are zoned as agricultural. The proposal is to have these valuable prime agricultural lands rezoned to industrial to build a proposed industrial business park. Council must not support the delegation's request, but deny it completely. This is yet another example of developers seizing agricultural land and taking it out of production in order to develop it for purposes for which it is not zoned accordingly, basically circumventing the exact planning policies and processes municipalities have in place to ensure controlled growth, development, and that land use activities are structured, planned, and orderly according to their own long-term land use vision. Why on earth would council not follow their own land use planning policies and processes? The provincial government has been clear in its direction for years that prime agricultural land must not be taken out of inventory and that doing so should be avoided at all costs. Prime agricultural land has been constantly chipped away for development, and this continues as developers push their own economic interests forward with indifference to farmers and residents alike. My understanding is that not only the land in question is prime agricultural land, which must remain as such, it also falls within a green buffer zone designated specifically to prevent exactly this type of development from taking place. These particular lands are located in an area where only farms and residential neighborhoods exist. These include thousands of residential homes within Barrie to the south, the ongoing Stone Manor development, and the huge new residential development underway just to the north. There is no possible justification to rezone agricultural land to industrial to accommodate a developer when there exists plenty of industrial land where this proposed industrial park could be built within the proper zoning or application process. This proposal, as being presented, is an example of poor planning in the extreme and must not be entertained. It seems that the developers managed to buy this agricultural land with no intent to farm it at all, but rather envision that they'd simply get it rezoned to their liking. Seeing that rezoning through the normal channels would have little chance of success, they now seek to slide it through by using the most powerful tool available to them, the minister's zoning order. This must not be allowed to happen. A minister's zoning order effectively removes municipal oversight and control, denies timely public input, and renders the municipality itself to bystander status. If this is such a wonderful idea, why do these developers require a delegation to Springwater Council at all? Why don't they simply present their grand plan to the minister directly? It's very simple to paint a picture without substance, describe a proposal without guarantees, make something sound like so much more than it actually is. But at the root of it all, these are agricultural lands in a green belt zone, and council must not reward any developer who knowingly purchases agricultural lands with the intent and purpose to rezone them through the use of minister's zoning order. Members of council must respect the residents of Springwater Township, its own policies and procedures, and adhere to its own zoning bylaws and official plan vision. Council must not be swayed to play favorites and grant exceptions to one developer over another. The playing field must be fair. Council must be diligent and careful in the extreme and not set precedent by which others may follow. Please, I ask you, simply follow your own policies, procedures, and guidelines and refuse the delegation's request. And Mayor Allen, that is the end of question period submission.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just want to just a comment on the letters that have been forwarded for submission. I want to thank the people forwarding them. They're well written and well spoken, and I just want to say thank you to Doug, Dave, Mr. Bastian as well too. So thanks again. And it's nice to hear from the residents. Thanks again.
Thank you. And thank you for the comments and questions, and these will certainly be reviewed. Moving on to 5.1, minutes of council. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral and Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Any questions, comments with respect to the minutes 1 through 5? These are the minutes of the special meeting of council, March 3rd, 2022. The special meeting, March 3rd, closed session, special meeting of council, March 16, 2022, and the special meeting of council closed session, March 16, 2022, and the regular meeting of council, March 16, 2022. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to 5.4, the minutes of boards, committees, and organizations. A mover and seconder for these 2 minutes, please. Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ma Chapman. Any comments with respect to these? The motion is that the minutes of the boards, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received as information, being the minutes of the Springwater Library Board meeting of January 18, 2022, and the minutes of the Springwater Library Board meeting of February 15, 2022. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to 6.1. I'll pass this over to the chair, as this is a motion submitted by me. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just one further second here. My apologies, my computer is not participating. Just one second here. I will ask for a mover and seconder, I guess, to have it put on first at 6.1, and I can read the recommendation once my computer comes back.
I will move it.
Moved by Mayor Allen, seconded by Councillor Cabral.
Why don't I start discussion while you're trying to get that organized there, Deputy Mayor? This was an approach by the York University School of Medicine with respect to a proposal. There was a presentation that I was conflicted in attending, and CAO Schmidt attended in my stead. So I'll turn it over to CAO Schmidt, please, just give an overview of that presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Mayor Allen, Deputy Mayor Cogman, and members of council. On March 16th, on behalf of Mayor Allen, I participated in a virtual meeting with representatives from York University, along with a few mayors from our neighboring municipalities in Simcoe and Muskoka. At that meeting, we discussed York University's conceptual proposal for a new school of medicine in York region. York's medical school has been designed to respond to the needs of the healthcare system in Ontario and Canada, focusing heavily on the diverse and fast-growing communities of North Toronto, York region, Simcoe, and Muskoka. The program seeks to increase the number of primary care physicians to address the 43% shortage in Ontario. Learning will take place in interprofessional teams within hospitals as well as community healthcare hubs to enhance an integrated and distributed model of healthcare. As part of the recent call for pre-budget submissions, York University has made a request to the Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Affairs for a $1 million development grant to facilitate the timely development of the implementation strategy for their medical school proposal. The City of Vaughan's Council has voted in favor of proceeding with negotiations with York University to establish York's physical presence in the Vaughan Healthcare Centre precinct, together with Mackenzie Health, to build a hub of healthcare excellence in Ontario. The discussion with York University and the mayors of Simcoe and Muskoka indicated there is a significant need for primary care physicians in our municipality and those around us. And York University is confident that they could play a significant role in filling the gap. Following the meeting on March 16th, I received a request from York University for a formal letter of support from Springwater Council, indicating your willingness to participate in further discussions that will lead to fundamental changes to improving the health and wellness in our community. York University will be making a full proposal submission to the provincial government, including all letters of support, on April 14th of this year. And it is for this reason that this is before you this evening. And that concludes my update, Mr. Mayor. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, CAO Schmidt. So I would request. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. CAO Schmidt, thank you for that. Is there any other members of council that have any questions or comment? Councillor Ritchie?
Yes, through to, thank you, CAO Schmidt. So I'm still a little confused here. Are they wanting to build a school up here? Is that what they're looking for? Or yes, we need more doctors. Definitely a shortage of doctors, but just what is it they're looking for?
Councillor Ritchie through to CO Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Ritchie, the understanding is that they are looking at building, I believe there's 6 or possibly 7 schools of medicine in Ontario. This would be the 8th. And so they are looking for support from Spring Otter Council, as well as those other areas north of Toronto, York Region, Simcoe, Muskoka, letters of support to I guess, assist them in trying to get approval from the province to grant them funds to move forward with a new school of medicine. The new school of medicine is proposed to be built in Vaughan. My understanding it's beside the Mackenzie Health Center down in Vaughan. So it's not going to be built in Simcoe per se or Muskoka, but the intent is that the individuals that would be drawn to that school once they're done their schooling would be hopefully focus their attention and their careers up in this area and hopefully address the gaps that we have with regards to our physicians. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, CO Schmidt. Any other questions or comments from council? And seeing none, the recommendation that the correspondence from York University regarding York University School of Medicine conceptual proposal dated March 21st, 2022 be received, and that a letter of support on behalf of the township be sent to York University for inclusion in the proposal submission, urging the provincial government to approve the York University School of Medicine. All those in favor? And that is carried. And I will pass the chair back over to Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we are at 7.1, action reports, option items, meeting of council, local boards, and committees of council. Can I have a mover and seconder get this on the floor? Councillor Ma and Deputy Mayor Coghlan. I'd like to turn this over to Clerk Ainsworth to provide us with an overview of the report and the options, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you. In December of 2020, Council had passed a resolution to have meetings of councils, local boards and committees remain virtual until the COVID-19 health situation changed. With the lifting of restrictions in March, this report is now in front of you for consideration of how council would like to proceed with their meetings on a go-forward basis. There are 2 options that are being presented. Option 1 would be for council to continue conducting meetings virtually. So the process for that would be exactly as you see today. Zoom meetings, members of council, staff, guests participating virtually from a location of their choice. Or option 2 would be for council to decide if they'd like to go back to in-person meetings. So at this time, an in-person meeting would see the process be just as it was prior to COVID. All members of council, staff, and any participants would be in the council chambers. The meeting would be live streamed on the website as well as YouTube with a zoomed out view of the council chambers, so not the tiles that you're seeing today. Further direction is being sought for staff to provide a subsequent report regarding the costs associated with retrofitting the council chambers for a hybrid model. We have been working on this, but unfortunately, with the restrictions being withdrawn, we just weren't able to get the pricing in time for this report. So we would seek coming back to council with a subsequent report with the final costs and seeking direction on if council would like to retrofit for a hybrid model. Also part of the report and motion before you this evening is to allow local boards and committees of council to choose based on their members' needs and their requirements, whether they would like to remain virtual as well, continue virtually, or move back to in-person meetings. And I do apologize. The motion before you under options 1 and 2 state that meetings of council, local boards and committees. The words local boards and committees should be struck, and options 1 and 2 should just read that meetings of council continue to be conducted virtually or be held in person. So I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Clerk Ainsworth, just before I turn to the rest of the council, what would happen in option 2 with respect to public attendance?
Through you, Mayor Allen, to council, public attendance would go back to as it was pre-COVID. So there would be chairs set up in the council chambers. Members of the public could access the council chambers and view the meeting live that way. The other option would be to view it virtually, but if they would like to participate as a delegate, they would not be able to do so virtually until a hybrid model would be available.
Okay, Councillor, I'll start with, there were lots of cards. So Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just going to ask the same question about the residents, and Clerk Ainsworth answered that. I am still in support of option 1 to leave as is until the next election.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Allen. We're not out of the woods yet. Like, you know, it's you just announced there 60 and over. Want to go and get your 4th shot. So I'm going to stick with option 1 until we're out of the woods, because it hasn't gone away yet. And I was just speaking to a guy today. He's at home with COVID, and so I think we need to be safe and we need to be sure. And this has worked well, and I'm going to stick with option 1.
Thank you.
Mayor Allen, before I finish, I'd just like to throw this out there. Like, I'd like to stay with option 1, but it'd be nice to know if this did get cleared up, what's the cost to transfer over? So if the staff was to bring back a report and just let us know for our interest, if that's possible. But
that's part of the motion, as clerk was saying. So it's either option 1 or 2, plus those other 2 paragraphs of the options. So they will be going ahead and doing the costing of what a hybrid would involve and coming back to council as part of one of the choice 2. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I think we're all in fairly unique positions based on our own personal situations and our own households. Some of us have a greater need to protect ourselves from COVID than others might. And I can just reflect back when things were opening and closing. Well, for up until December, I never knew anybody personally or a friend or someone close to the family that had COVID. And since January rolled around, I could probably count 20 some odd people, including very close family members, that have contracted COVID and been extremely ill. So I think while the province may be lifting recommendations and letting things go, we also know that these numbers are climbing dramatically again right now. So to be quite honest, I think it would be premature to start meeting together. It's not as if we have to go to the admin center. If you have business there, it's different, but we're able to at least conduct our council meetings presently, remotely, and it seems to be working. And I'm just wondering whether going back into the council chambers at this point in time is worth the risk of contracting COVID or passing it on to somebody else and finding out that someone else got it from you. So I think I'm a little bit more apt to remain with what we're doing right now, going forward at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. Option 1 for me, for the reasons that have been stated. Just for clarification, I believe that if we at council had to get together for an chamber discussion, we'd be able to do that. It's not permitted by this, but just want to make sure the same applies for committees. For example, if we're having a soapbox derby and we need to have a committee meeting in person, this isn't preventing us from doing that if we go with option one. Is that correct?
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Hannah. That's correct. Each board and committee would have the option of choosing how they would like to conduct their meetings, and that could be a mix of in-person and virtual, depending on what the needs are, as long as it's noted on the agenda and notice is given on how the meeting will be conducted. There's no issue with that, and this motion would not deter any of that.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Cogman?
Thank you, Marilyn. When are we anticipating the report on the costs associated
Clerk
with the hybrid
Ainsworth?
model?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. We are putting priority on that. We've been working with a couple of different vendors to try to get pricing, which we found challenging at this point, but we are moving forward with this as a high priority item.
Thank you.
Councillor
Mott Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Sorry, I had one more question. Have we had any residents interested in going back to the chambers?
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Chapman. I have not received any correspondence from residents on how meetings are conducted.
Okay, so I think we're targeting option one from the discussion. So the motion would read that the report from the clerk regarding meetings of council, local boards, and committees of council dated April 6, 2022 be received, and that option one, meetings of council continue to be conducted virtually for the remainder of the term, and that local boards and committees of council be authorized to determine how they would like to proceed with meetings for the remainder of the term of council, and further, that a subsequent report be provided to outline the costs associated with retrofitting the council chambers to prepare for a hybrid meeting model with funds to be proposed from the COVID-19 Safe Restart Fund. Did you have a comment, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Marilyn. As option number one says, for the remainder of the term, should the report come back to council and council does have an appetite to embrace a hybrid option, to me, it almost contradicts itself. I'm not confident in saying that I would like to see us remain virtual until the remainder of this term. I'm hopeful that a hybrid option allowing members of council the choice as to the council chamber or virtual. So if we were to approve this tonight for the remainder of the term, that would be renegotiated at our next meeting or at the meeting when that's presented, or would we have to then have a reconsideration of that?
Clerk Ainsworth, and I'll go to Councillor Cabral, but I believe the motion is determining what we're doing with respect to meetings of council for the rest of the term. That's what option one contemplates. But Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. The intent for the subsequent report would be for council to decide whether the costs are acceptable for retrofitting of council chambers, and at that time, we should know more about the length of process it would take to actually retrofit the council chambers. And council could decide to return to a hybrid or go to a hybrid model once those the retrofitting is completed. I don't see an issue with removing the words for the remainder of the term because that subsequent direction is there to bring back another report, and it could be determined at that time.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To me, if it stays in there, council can change it down the road. If it doesn't stay in there, I guess it doesn't matter. But I think the key point here isn't whether we retrofit the chambers or not. The reality is whether or not we can actually go back in there and feel comfortable, safe, and maintain our health. That's what concerns me the most, whether it's hybrid or not. Even just going in there, unless the whole place has been sanitized, you're going to run the risk of catching COVID and giving it to your loved ones, your friends, or anybody else. So, and the new variants that much more communicable. So I'm just thinking, if you want to leave it in there, I don't see a problem with leaving it in there. It'll eventually be up to council down the road when chambers get retrofitted, if they get retrofitted, because that could be premature too. Maybe they're going to come up with the magic elixir and we can all go back to living a real normal life instead of one that's quasi-normal, take risks.
Deputy Mayor Coggan, does that address your concern then? Just leaving it as is and subject to review when the second part of the cost of the hybriding comes back?
Thank you, Marilyn. I personally just find that the paragraph 1 and 2 do contradict each other. I would like, and I'm hopeful that we can transition to a hybrid model pending costs associated. I would like to see for the remainder of the term removed, as I am hopeful that we can get into the chamber. And I don't want to see us put ourselves through that.
Okay, does the mover and seconder acknowledge that as a friendly amendment to the motion then, please? Flash yes if you do. Okay, then that will be removed, those wordings. All those in favor with the wording removed? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Moving to action report 7.2, community improvement plan, the Palace Tavern. Can I have a mover and seconder get this on the floor, please? Councillor Coughlin and Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ma Chapman. I think the report is pretty clear. Any questions of planner Brianna Belcourt on this item? Okay, the motion is that the report from the planner regarding CI 2022-001, being the Palace Tavern, dated April 6, 2022, be received, and that council, having considered the application presented, the requirements of the community improvement plan, and total funding requested, direct as follows: that the application be approved and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the appropriate agreements. I presume that's the choice. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, moving on to 7.3. This item has been pulled and will be represented at a later date. It's the library courier outreach van purchase. So moving to action reports at 8.1, we have a series of them. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Ma Chapman and Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Are there any questions or desires to pull any of these items? Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to pull 8.11 and I have comments on 8.6.
Okay, others, Councillor Cabral?
Yes, Mayor Allen, 8.2, 8.3, 8.6.
You'd like to do what?
On 8.2, it could be a couple of questions. Same with 8.3, but they're questions that may require. I think you should poll them, to be honest with you.
Okay. Poll GC. And that was 8.6 as well?
Yeah, 8.2, 8.3, 8.6.
Okay, who else, please? That's it. So pull. All right, so we're pulling 8.2, 8.3, 8.6, 8.11. 8.2, 8.3. Okay, so I'll try this. So the motion is that the action reports 8.2 through 8.11 be received and that the recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 2022 Municipal and School Board Election Joint Compliance Audit Committee. 8.5, Elmville District High School donation request. 8.7, Building Department growth pressure staffing request. 8.8, SISU-2021-003 and ZB 2021-012 Thompson Lands. 8.9, 86 Mill Street East Consent Agreement Authorization. 8.10 SU 2015-002 PGC Industrial Subdivision Request for Extension of Draft Plan Approval, with the exception of 8.2, 8.3, 8.6, and 8.11, which will be discussed separately. I catch that all right? All those in favor of that? That is carried. Okay, starting with 8.2, can I have a mover and seconder to get that on the floor? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ma Chapman. I'll turn it to Councillor Cabral to start with the questions, comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And it could be pretty straightforward, but I think there might be at least some acknowledgement that maybe there should be a couple of amendments to the contract portion, or at least some clarity. The things that kind of got me is when it came to terms, which is on page 1 of the contract portion, it states the operator shall have exclusive use of the lands identified in Schedule A to operate mountain bike programs and summer camps during the term of this agreement. In the next part where they kind of briefly speak about the actual programming, they kind of specify 9, I believe, till 4 p.m. And I just think that this should actually find out from them what hours they really need, so that the way this is worded, it kind of means that no one else can use it, say after hours for a game of pickup ball or something like that. And I just don't want to have any conflicts coming down the road because of that particular one. And the only other one I wanted to see maybe whether or not it should be added in there is the potential for damages and who's going to be responsible to address damages. Will they turn back the property in conditions suitable to the township, I guess is what I want to make sure of. So those are the two aspects they deal with the contract itself as far as the terms are concerned.
Manager Bianadine, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through yourself to Councillor Cabral and the rest of council. Thank you very much for those comments. So in regards to the statement around the exclusive use of the lands, so yes, I can definitely go back to them and just look at changing the wording of that. As in my conversations with her, the intent would not be that section per se that they were setting up their mountain bike track in and running their program in would not be available when the program wasn't running. So the camp program would run from the approximately 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Usually drop off starts about 8:30. Pickup can run about half an hour after. And then their equipment actually gets picked up and stored in a crate for security for their own purposes after the program each day. So for the means of that actual field space, which is the field grass area directly behind where staff park currently at the administration center, it would be available for other uses during those outside of those times. So I can definitely look into clarifying that point there. And in regards to the damages, so we do have in there a statement for $1,000 deposit, damage deposit. So in speaking with GM Ramdeo today, we did talk about just clearing up the language around that damage deposit and ensuring that it would state any land damages as well in it that could be recuperated with that. So we can look to, again, just clear up the wording around that statement.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. Would there be an opportunity for us to approve this as amended if removing the word exclusive? And that way Brad could move forward with their advertising, understand that they have secured the facility. I do know that summer camps and summer activities are fast approaching. So if in order for this to move forward, if we were to remove the word exclusive, if that would be acceptable to the proponent. If not, they can come back to council, but otherwise just to move this forward.
Yeah, no, I'd like to move it forward tonight with the comments we have from council Manager Dean?
Yes, I would, sorry, through you, Mayor Allen, to you, Deputy Mayor, and the rest of council. That would be greatly appreciated if the amendments were made, if council was agreeable to execute the signing of the document based on the amending the F section, as well as adding some wording around the damage deposit section.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. That's really where I thought we were headed. So I don't need to see any changes right
No.
now. I'm sure that we can count on Manager Dean and General Manager Ramdeo to sort it out accordingly.
That's what I was thinking too, that with comments that we made, they could tweak it and we didn't have to do amendments. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. As the bylaw is listed on this evening's meeting for approval, I would recommend that an amendment be tabled to state that the motion now before council be amended as follows, that the bylaw be amended to remove the words exclusive in the terms section. And Manager Dean, was it section F for damages?
That's correct. Section F, statement A.
And section F, statement A be clarified regarding damages, if that would appease council, and then staff could make those small clerical changes to the bylaw, and that would mean that the bylaw would still move forward this evening. I would just add at the motion to approve the bylaws, after that bylaw, it would be as amended, and it would be based on this resolution.
Excellent, thank you. That's okay with the mover and seconder. Manager Dean, comment?
Yep, sorry, Renee, just to clarify, so under the payment section, which would be, so part 1, point D would be in regards to the $1,000 security deposit. And then sorry, just moving to my other screen again. And then in section 2, under the terms, point F, and then sub point A would be removing the word exclusive.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Allen. Just because of the changes, it would be best to have an actual amendment. So I do have something drafted loosely. I would need to clean it up with the comments from Manager Dean. But if we could seek a mover and seconder for that amendment, that would be appreciated, please.
Councillor Cabral and Deputy Mayor Coghlan. And how do you want to read that, or do you have it in a form to read, or?
I do not have it in a form to read, but it would encompass the discussion that just took place.
Okay. Then with that, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 8.3, can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor Allen, we would point of order. We just need to finish up with the main motion.
Do we in this case, Clerk Ainsworth? Okay,
Yes, Mayor Allen, the main motion as amended.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And that is, go ahead and read that then, please, Clerk Ainsworth.
Through you, Mayor Allen. So the main motion, as noted on the agenda, that the report from the manager, Recreation Parks and Facilities regarding RAD Adventures third-party programming dated April 6, 2022 be received, and that council directs staff to continue to formalize the agreement with RAD Adventures to offer mountain bike programs from Tree Nursery Sports Park, and that a bylaw be presented to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the necessary contract and agreement with RAD Adventures, and that the bylaw be amended to remove the words exclusive and also to clarify the damages section based on the section numbers that Manager Dean has just outlined.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So 8.3, mover and seconder, please. Did I get that? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ritchie. Before we get into discussion, I think Manager Dean has a bit of an update for us. Maybe you could share that based on the announcement today and any other information.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through yourself to council. So today there was in regards to funding dollars being allocated to the tourism sectors. So I don't have exact details on how that could apply to this grant, but that there will be future potential grants that could come into play that could benefit the township's contribution that is being requested as part of this FedDev grant for the upgrades to the North Simcoe Rail Trail. Through discussion with staff as well, we have been looking at other ways that the requested township contribution could be put forward. So in addition to the options stated tonight, we, as it mentioned, it does state that staff would continue to seek additional funding sources. So some of those sources that staff would be continuing to seek are Trans-Canada Trail grants and Connecting Trails Through Communities grants. So at this point, there has not been any information released on those grants to date, but I have reached out to those associations, and they do plan on putting grants out this year. So that's kind of a bit of an update in regards to, in addition to the points that are made in the report. I'm happy to answer any further questions or provide any further details.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Cabral first, then Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. It's wonderful, actually, that you know, they got the grant. What concerns me is that it's also now become a $250 cost to the taxpayers of Springwater Township, and I certainly understand, Manager Dean, that there may be some other funding coming. So you know, so that presents a problem in and of itself, because we're going to be taking money from the tax stabilization fund, if I read the report correctly, to come up with $250,000 so that we can avail ourselves of the $750,000. So I guess part one is, I think this type of an application should be something that maybe should be, I guess, come before council, at least to apprise us that that's what staff is planning on doing for one that of this magnitude. Maybe you didn't think you were going to get $1 million, but at the end of the day, you did. So it does create a tax implication, and the money has to come from somewhere. So that would just be the one thing that I think going forward we could ask, so that at least we as a council know that there's the potential on these types of grants, because chances are when it was being applied for, staff would have known that it was 75% to 25%. So it just creates a bit of a problem for me, because now I have to kind of think about whether or not I want to put that money, taxpayer money, towards the North Rail Trail. The other thing I wouldn't mind seeing at some point in time is some kind of a survey that shows the amount of usage that the trail is actually getting, and what the peak periods are. That would be nice to know. And I guess thirdly is, who actually owns the North Shore or the North Trail? Is it township that through agreement is responsible for it, or is it Simcoe counties, or is it a national trail that the federal government is responsible for? So I guess three questions that I would like to be answered, if at all possible.
Okay, I'll start with Manager Dean, then Director Radigan, then CAO Schmidt, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through yourself to Councillor Cabral and Council. Thank you. So this grant was a grant that did have a very short turnaround on the application for the grant, and did have some specific grant criteria for it. So due to the tight turnaround, as well as the tight project timelines, the money does have to be spent by the end of 2022 to secure the funding. It unfortunately was not the timing that allowed it to come to council for an approval of a grant, or to seek input in regards to avenues or projects that we may want to look at for grants, such as in the past when we've done the ICIP grant or others, and we've come to council seeking input on suggestions or ideas or projects. In regards to trail usage, I do not have those stats. I know, for example, that Simcoe County, I can probably gain some stats from them on some information they've gathered on sections of the trail that are included in some of the bicycle loops and some of the other tourism avenues. So we can definitely look into getting some usage status. Again, maybe something we can look into farther in regards to gaining some statistics on usage on the trail. And I think the third question was in regards to the ownership. So the Trans-Canada Trail runs all throughout Canada. This trail is specifically in our municipality, and we are responsible for the trail maintenance, the trail upgrade, and the costs around the trail. So Trans-Canada at times does look to add sections of the Trans-Canada trails into areas, and they basically seek a partnership with the township. So for example, if any added trails that they wanted to add onto a section, they may seek a partnership avenue with the township to partner on one of our trails. So there is some avenues where we can apply for funding. So for example, the one I mentioned before of the Trans-Canada Trail funding to help recoup some of the costs of different maintenance on the trail throughout the years. And they do tend to have annual grants available, sometimes larger, sometimes smaller.
Director Radigan.
Or do you want to go to CAO Schmidt first? I think you wanted to add.
Yeah, no, let me go to, let me go to Director Radigan and then CAO Schmidt, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor. Go ahead, Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. I wanted to provide further insight in terms of funding of the $250,000. Staff have reached out to Watson and Associates regarding if the project is DC eligible. And based on my understanding, the project is about between 10 to 15% DC eligible, and that would be included on our next DC background study. In addition to that, staff also sought further clarification from the Community Building Fund, which was formerly known as the Federal Gas Tax Fund. And this project would also be eligible for gas tax funding. We do have unspent funds as a result of the top-up funding that we received in 2021. And there are sufficient funds to support the project as a result of that as well. So there are two sources of funding that could be utilized without using taxation funds. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral and members of council. So apologies, Councillor Cabral, absolutely on the timing of this. Unfortunately, as Manager Dean indicated, the timing on this one, unfortunately, was a little short, and we weren't in a position to come to council. We typically would, that is the process we typically would do, and we would come to council and seek your authorization to file or submit an application. Just unfortunately with the turnaround time on this one. So again, my apologies. And just further to some of the other comments made. Again, the North Simcoe Rail Trail is something that is utilized, to my understanding, by quite a few individuals. As Manager Dean indicated, not sure what the usage is, but we do know that it definitely is being used. And I think it is somewhat of an economic driver to some degree in the township. It does bring some economic development. And so having these funds available, I think would be advantageous to the township, but obviously subject to council's approval. The 250, again, the idea would be is that the tax rate stabilization reserve would kind of be a backstop. As Director Radigan mentioned, we are looking at definitely other funding sources that we could utilize, so we don't have to draw on that tax rate stabilization reserve and or minimize the amount that comes from that fund. So again, the idea here would be to try to get council's approval to move forward with this, understanding that the 250 would be kind of the default, or the backstop would be the tax rate stabilization, but if we can use DCs and or federal gas tax and or other funds, then definitely we'll make sure that we do that, obviously with your indulgence.
Thank you. I appreciate that, CEO Schmidt.
Follow on, Councillor Cabral.
Well, I thought that's what I was having, Mayor Allen. I said I would have a follow-on after CEO Schmidt spoke.
Okay,
so,
please wait till I direct that, please.
Okay, fair enough.
Go ahead.
All I was going to add, and I understand CO Schmidt, but I just want to be clear that it does put council between a rock and a hard place. And even though it didn't come before council, I think it might have been okay, since it sounds like some things were going on in the background, that maybe it might have been something that council could have at least been apprised of, that this is what we're doing. Not necessarily that I might object, I could object to it, and then maybe it might give you pause for thought. However, what I kind of disappointed in is it doesn't matter where this money is coming from, whether it's coming from DC's tax stabilization or the gas tax money. That's all money that could still have been utilized for other purposes too. So it doesn't really alleviate it. It just kind of says, well, we have some other sources of funding, but in my mind, I can see those other sources of funding being used for other projects as well. So I just wanted to make the point. It's not that I'm opposed to this. I don't want anybody to get that impression. It's just that it kind of blindsides us. I appreciate that it was maybe a short turnaround period of time, but it is $250,000. So that's the only reason I'm bringing it up. And I hope council understands that that's why I brought it up, not because I'm trying to be disrespectful to anybody, just simply so that maybe going forward, we can have a better understanding of when the grants are being applied for, whether we meet as a council or not. It'd be kind of a nice thing to know. And if a councillor has a problem with it, then maybe it should be put on the agenda, that's all. So I do appreciate it. And thank you very much, Mr. Mayor Allen, for allowing me to have my follow-up.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral. Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I support the rail trail, but what I'd like to see is a cost from staff as to how much it's going to cost to fix it up. That we haven't seen. At least I haven't read anything. So I feel like we're kind of putting the cart in front of the horse. How much is it going to cost to fix the rail trail?
Manager Dean?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through yourself to Councillor Ritchie and the rest of council. So we do not have a firm cost on the resurfacing of the rail trail. That would be done through the tender process and the procurement process. We have had estimates in the past, and for the to resurface in an accessible surface, so similar to a limestone surface, and without the details of knowing the full grading to it, it would be it was estimated about a year and a half or so ago at about $1.3 million for the full length of the trail.
Follow on?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. So if like, I mean, you can buy a lot of limestone screenings for $250,000. Like, and the thing is too, can this be done by the end of the year? That's another thing. Can it be done? I don't think it can be. Yet we're coming into the construction season, but also it's like, can it be done by the end of the year? And again, the report on it. So I'm having a hard time trying to support this. I mean, what happens if we don't have it done? We're not going to be able to get the grant money. And then again, like you just mentioned there, Manager Dean, a year and a half ago, we got a quote at $1.3 million. Well, with everything else going up the way it has been, we don't have to look too far. Is it going to cost $1.5 million? So now we got to go back to our pockets and dig for another 500. Like, I'm not happy with this report. I find a lot of holes in it. We got a quick turnaround. We got to either get off the pot, but you know what? I just as soon do what we can this year and leave it at that. I can't support this. Thank you.
Manager Dean, do you have a comment on timing?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to Councillor Ritchie and the rest of council. So through the tender process, we would determine the timing. We do believe we would be able to accomplish the resurfacing of it by the end of the year. In the grant too, we are seeking up to $250,000. So from the township contribution, and the other up to $750,000 would be from the Fed Dev Fund. So that is an up to amount. So there is opportunity that, depending on the tender and the quotes coming in, potentially it doesn't look at the full 30 kilometers, that it could look at a condensed section of the trail. So it's up to the 30 kilometers and up to the maximum contribution from Fed Dev would be the 750,000, and we would have to match 25% of whatever that number from Fed Dev ended up being into the maximum of the 750,000.
CEO Schmidt, did you have any follow-up comment?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, I understand the comments from Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ritchie. And again, our apologies. I think some things that maybe, and not to belabor the point, but, we have had some changes, or we did have some changes last year in staffing in this area specifically. And so, staff do their utmost to try to ensure that we're applying for all grants that are available to us. And, we don't have a dedicated individual that looks for grants on a regular basis. So again, we do our best, and again, our apologies, and we'll do better. That's what I can commit to is that we will do better. We have typically come to you with these in advance. And again, I guess all I can say is, again, my apologies for not bringing this to you ahead of time. So
Thank you. Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess I better apologize if I repeat something that was asked. I got locked out. I couldn't get back onto the Zoom meeting. So anyway, I'm back. My position on this, it's $250,000. Yep, we get $750,000 maybe donated if we spend $250,000, which is basically 2 points, if you like, on tax increase on residents. I know we can take it out of stabilization and other funds. My point being is that those funds can also be used for things that benefit the majority of Springwater Township residents. I would suggest that there's not a lot of, if you take the percentage, why I would suggest maybe not even 10% of the residents of Springwater would actually use this trail. So I'm going to have trouble supporting it for those reasons. I realize we have some money, $750,000. We got to spend $250,000. So I can't support spending that kind of money to benefit a small portion of the people that might use it in Springwater Township. So I'll be going against it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. CEO Schmidt covered a couple of the points, one specifically about a grant writer. Secondly, I think this is amazing. I think that the fact that we were able and fortunate enough to have this grant awarded, I would like to commend staff for that. There are different and other opportunities that through the county, there are many opportunities. I get that this is 250, but we're looking at 750. I understand that not everyone utilizes the rail trail, but this is something that goes straight across our municipality. And I would argue that not any of our recreation amenities are used by our entire population, whether it be arenas or libraries or parks or tennis courts. I think that this is a versatile, and this will make it more accessible to all residents. I think it's something that we in Springwater need to celebrate. Our trails are far superior to others, and this is going to make it more accessible and more attainable to people. I would like to reiterate that while we as a council were not apprised to this prior to this meeting, staff isn't apprised to when opportunities are going to become available. So thank you to staff for jumping on every single opportunity. And if council should not support it, I can understand that, but I think that we as a corporation need to continue to pursue these opportunities for our residents. I don't want to see us fall shy of applying over and over again for grants. It's not often that Springwater is successful. So I would like to commend Manager Dean and her staff for obtaining this for us. I think this is an incredible opportunity for Springwater. It is one that I'm in full support of. Past councils and past councillors have been advocating for trails connectivity, more signage on the trails. This is something that a 2-year-old and a 92-year-old can enjoy. So whether people choose to enjoy it or not, I think that we as a council need to provide it, because Springwater is a beautiful place and this allows people to explore it. I am in full support of this. And again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess my only comment at this stage of the game is, if I heard Manager Dean correctly, even though they have awarded $750,000, we're not obliged to pay it off. We're simply obliged to pay 25% of whatever we spend. I could support a lesser number, but I cannot support $250,000.
Well, it sounds like that 250, according to Director Radigan, will be reduced somewhat by DCs and the other items she mentioned potentially.
Yeah, correct, Mayor Allen. And I think I was quite clear that those funds from those specific pockets of money or envelopes of money can be utilized for other purposes. So really, we're just taking money that can be utilized for something else and applying it to the rail trail as a result of this grant being applied for. And now we have $250,000 to look for. So I can't support the full amount. Sorry.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, just to clarify, Councillor Cabral, so I would agree with you on the federal gas tax funds. The DCs I would not agree with you on. The DCs are not available just for anything else in the township. They are specific to growth-related projects. So just to make sure we're on the same page there, that's all.
Councillor Ritchie and then Councillor Maude Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Maybe we take it different. Let's take another run at this here. How, if we were to apply for this and we got it, how many kilometers of rail trail would we be able to do this year? And then we could go back and look towards the ways of doing the rest of it in following years, because it is widely used. Like, I mean, but that's my question to Manager Dean.
Manager.
How many kilometers could we get done this year?
Manager Dean.
I don't know. I'm not sure I'm going to fully answer your question correctly here. So just go ahead.
Can I just jump in there for a minute? Like,
yes, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is, okay, if we have 30 kilometers, and if that's what it is, but if we get the money and we do 20 kilometers, but at least we've got something done. At least we've got something done, rather than just say no to the whole thing, because it runs through the whole municipality. Like, we need to take a hard look at this. So, like,
CEO Schmidt.
Yes, there's a lot of roads out there that's in rough shape. I drive them every day. The winter's been hard. There's a lot of frost. If the roads department's listening, I'm sure they would appreciate what I'm saying, and we could use this money elsewhere. But the rail trail is widely used. And what I'm saying is, if we did apply for it, if we did get the money, and we did say 15 kilometers this year or 20, it's done. Then we can worry about moving forward the following year, because like what Deputy Mayor Coghlan said, here's 250, but we get 750. You know, it was like when we did the school, we put up 500,000, we got $11 million addition. That was value for your money. So you do great work, and again, how many kilometers? And I won't hold you to it, but maybe that's the way we should be looking at this. Not the whole thing, but a portion of it.
CEO Schmidt, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Just two things through you to Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Ritchie, just to make sure we're, again, all on the same page here. The $750,000 has been approved. Our application has been approved. Those funds are available to the township. What's being asked tonight is in order to move forward with the contribution agreement, there is a requirement for the township to put up 25% of the project cost. So just to be clear, we have received the funds, if you will, or approval for the funds. We just have to get approval for this contribution agreement. And then Manager Dean, maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, Manager Dean, we did do, staff did, and again, maybe it's just a perspective, we did do the trail around the Anton Mills Community Park. I'm not sure what the length of that is and how long that took. Is that something that could be put things in perspective as it relates to what we're talking about here as the North Simcoe Rail Trail?
Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to the rest of council. So there was a $10,000 construction cost plus some additional costs in aggregates for the full trail at Anton Mills. It is just over, I'm going to quote the number wrong, but it's just over a kilometer. I can get back on the exact number of it. So in terms of the North Simcoe Rail Trail, we would go out to tender for it. And I believe that the cost per kilometer, call it, would likely be less than the Anton Mills Trail because the trail itself is existing. What we're looking to do is resurface it in an accessible material, whether that be a limestone, whether it be more of an asphalt style or a surface gravel, but a surface material that did meet the accessibility standards. So it would need some grading work, some leveling, and then compacting of the actual materials. And through the tender process, we would, my thoughts based on this discussion tonight, and if it was approved, basically we would tender out for an estimate up to so many kilometers or up to so many dollars to be able to figure out, unless there was an exact amount or kilometers we wanted to look at as a maximum amount, and then kind of work backwards from there. So I helped provide some input.
Let me go to Councillor Maude Chapman, then Deputy Mayor Coughlin, then back to Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was going to ask the same question as Councillor Ritchie. Does it need to be all done at once? Is it maybe a little bit less expensive if it's done all at once? And what happens if this doesn't get approved today? The money that we did receive, what happens to it?
Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to Councillor Maude Chapman. So if we did not approve the contribution agreement from the township tonight, we would essentially be not moving forward with the grant. So we wouldn't move forward with the full contribution agreement from the township. We wouldn't move forward with the grant or the grant funding.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to Manager Dean or maybe GM Ramdeo. With this opportunity, understanding that other municipalities may need to go to a third party to have this work done, is opportunities to do some work in-house or to pull some aggregate from our own pits in order to save some costs and to stretch it even further to get more kilometers done with this opportunity.
Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to the Deputy Mayor. So yes, one thing we are looking at is some aggregates from our own pit to be able to have that go towards some of the contribution from the township end. I did reach out today for some clarification in regards to what the level and the grade of the accessibility material, what the minimum standard has to be, as well as just to confirm the details through the Fed Dev, through our grant contact there, to make sure that we would be falling within all the criterias if we did utilize aggregates that were township aggregates. So we are seeking the final answers on those, but those are definitely avenues we are looking into.
Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To just speak about the aggregate, we have some of the best aggregate in the country. We have top of the line aggregate, and we can use it. We got lots out there. That would be a great move. And to Councillor Maude Chapman, you're absolutely right. Like I went on a tangent there thinking that everything had to be done immediately, but that's why I'm saying I need to take another look at this and say, well, if we did 10 kilometers this year or 20 kilometers this year, CEO Smith just said, the money's there. We just got to put the money up. At least if we had a portion of it done, then we can do it in stages. That makes sense. I can handle. That I can handle.
Well,
if the
the
money's
motion-
there and we're gonna turn around and walk away from it, we're leaving money on the table. That's a bad deal, according to my real estate experience. Thank you.
Well, the motion states up to 250 and up to 750. So if we approve this motion and go back and get more specifics about the timing and other aspects we've been discussing, then we could come back and refine the finalized contract with respect to this funding. CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. And just further to your comment there, absolutely, staff would be required to come back based on our procurement bylaw, assuming that it's at that dollar limit. So we would be coming back to council for your final indulgence on this.
Okay.
And just to clarify, sorry, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ritchie's comment, just to be clear, the project has to be done by the end of this year. So that is another requirement under the grant, I believe, Manager Dean. So we just need to be careful on that too. We could phase it, but these funds need to be expensed in this year.
Councillor Ritchie?
Mayor Allen, it'd be nice maybe we could get the support, move this thing through. Then later on, it'd be nice for staff to come back to council with a report, just give us an update on how we're making out with it. That would be, to me, very important. And while it's in my head, because things happen to slip out of my mind here, it'd be nice to identify areas on the rail trail that's in poor shape. There's wet areas, there's through swamps. It'd be nice to take this money and identify some areas that really need some touching up and address that to get this thing up, because up here it is widely used. Snowmobilers, hikers in the summer, everybody. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, good discussion. So the motion then reads that the report from the manager, recreation parks and facilities regarding the contribution agreement, North Simcoe Rail Trail surface upgrades, federal development grant dated April 6, 2022 be received, and that council approve a maximum funding of up to $250,000 appropriated from the tax rate stabilization reserve, and the remaining contribution of up to $750,000 or 75% of total eligible project costs come from the approved federal development grant funding, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the North Simcoe Rail Trail surface upgrade contribution agreement, and the staff will continue to seek and apply for additional third-party funding sources to reduce the township's 25% contribution.
Recorded
Okay.
vote, please.
Yes, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just one moment while I prepare the recorded vote. My apologies for the delay. A recorded vote was requested by Councillor Cabral. When I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Cabral,
Yes, and don't leave any money on the table.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Chapman,
Yes.
Councillor Hannah,
No.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin,
Yes.
and Mayor Allen.
Yes,
Motion is carried.
thank you. Moving on to 8.6. which is the flexible work arrangements, compressed work week. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Mott Chapman, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. Turn this over to CAO Schmidt to give us an overview, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So good evening, Mayor Allen, Deputy Mayor Coghlan, and members of council. Item 8.6 on tonight's council agenda, entitled Flexible Work Arrangements, Compressed Work Week, is seeking your indulgence of two key initiatives. Firstly, the adoption of a flexible work arrangement policy, and secondly, consideration of a 5-month compressed work week pilot project. As you're aware, over the past 2 years, as you're aware, the past 2 years have proven to be very challenging for all of us, including Springwater residents and our staff. During this time, township employees were forced to change the way they worked, which has had an impact on their work and personal lives. Some employees were forced to work remotely, in which most of these individuals are currently still doing. As the province starts to reopen, the township feels we are in the best position to determine how to move forward with our employees. As such, in February of this year, a survey was conducted with our staff to better understand what they are seeking in their ideal work environment. This is what we heard from 50 of our employees. Over 95% indicated that they would be interested in participating in a flexible work arrangement with the township. Over 80% indicated that they would be interested in exploring a compressed work schedule with the township. Furthermore, over 73% of our admin or inside staff have expressed an interest in continuing to work in a hybrid environment, whereby they would continue to be afforded the opportunity to work remotely and in the office. Of note, of the responses received, not one disagreed with moving forward with a flexible work arrangement. As well, only 2 responses indicated that they would like to be fully back in the office. With this information, along with other research staff have conducted, we felt that to ensure that the township remains competitive in our local marketplace, it is prudent that we formalize a policy that provides for flexible work arrangements for our staff. Most municipalities in Simcoe County and other areas of Ontario either already have a similar policy in place or are currently in the process of adopting one. By council approving the flexible work arrangement policy this evening, it will ensure that the township remains competitive when trying to recruit new employees. But more importantly, it will ensure that our existing employees are being heard. Earlier this year, council approved the new 2022 compensation grid, which ensures that the township remains competitive on the compensation front. With the adoption of a flexible work arrangement policy, this ensures that we keep pace with others in the municipal marketplace. Further to the flexible work arrangement policy, we heard from our staff that they are interested in exploring a compressed work week schedule. As such, staff conducted some research regarding a 4-day work week, and we discovered that there are a few municipalities in the province of Ontario that have moved in this direction, along with one other municipality in Nova Scotia. Staff reached out to representatives at these municipalities to obtain a better understanding of how this works in their environments. Based on these discussions and armed with the responses from our staff survey, we are seeking council's consideration of a 5-month pilot project to see if we can implement a compressed work week, or better known as a 4-day work week, in the township. We understand there will likely be some hurdles to overcome, but without having the opportunity and support of council to explore this, we'll never know whether this could work for the township. On behalf of all township staff, I'm requesting council support and indulgence in allowing us to explore this opportunity. By doing so, we will put Springwater Township on the map, and we will elevate us over our neighboring municipalities and greatly enhance our recruitment and retention opportunities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor Coghlan, and members of council. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. I support it 100%. I've got a lot of experience with compressed work weeks. I can tell you that the 4-10 plan, the 4 10-hour days, great for morale, productivity, and service to the end users was all a major increase. However, the similar 12-hour day, while it was great for morale, it wasn't such a great benefit to the end users. I would suggest that one of the things we should consider supporting this for is that by staff working a longer day, it gives them the opportunity to keep our administrative office, if you like, open later in the day. So instead of being there at 4:30, there's an opportunity for residents who have to have appointments maybe to come by say 5:30 in the afternoon instead of closing at 4:30. So positive opportunities, great for morale, and productivity should be improved, if at least maintained. I support it.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I have a number of comments, and I'm hopeful that CAO Schmidt would possibly just pick up on a few. I do support it. I support it in a lot of different ways. Much like Councillor Hanna, I am familiar with compressed work weeks, but they don't work for everything. And I think we also have to understand that compressed work weeks, flexible schedules are wonderful for those that are able to make use of them and benefit from them. But there's a number of staff that may not work for. And I'm thinking counter staff, people that are in positions where they're dealing with the public. So I don't know, you're talking about cross training coming down. Maybe that'll provide them an opportunity. My biggest concern is to ensure that this is a positive move forward for the residents of Springwater Township, that service is better, and we need to have some kind of a baseline to look at going into this so that we can actually find out if this is an improvement to the residents. It's great for staff. It has to be just as good or better for the residents from a service perspective. One of the things that I've got since COVID came around, and it was obviously a big issue at the very beginning, is some of the complaints I get aren't because they want me to intervene. Some of the complaints I get sometimes are because they're simply not being responded to. So moving forward, if people are going to be working from home, I think it's too easy for them sometimes, or even at the office, when you do phone somebody, I hear is it always goes to voicemail. It always goes to voicemail. So there's some aspects of this that really have to be stressed. When it comes to the 4-day work week, I agree 100% for the outside workers. Certainly in the summertime, they can start earlier, be cooler. These folks are working outside in the heat of day. It will also allow their jobs to be performed more efficiently because they won't be nipping back after 3 hours work for lunch. They'll be able to put in 4 or 5 hours work before they break for lunch and have to come back or finish a job. It may also alleviate some of the more dangerous aspects of the outside workers who are in public works because they may be able to avoid doing work on a Friday when they can put more resources in it for a longer period of time through the day. So there's a lot of benefits here, certainly in the summer. I did agree with the report that the winter time obviously wouldn't work because we can't predict the weather. When I looked at the flexible start times for outside workers, for some of them it will work. And I can only think of someone who's doing patching, maybe the road patroller, maybe someone who's just doing some ditching or cutting the grass and working, or the grader working by themselves. But when you're in a position, and I hope CAO Schmidt, you understand what I'm getting at, is if you kind of put a hybrid system in, there's going to obviously be times when you're going to need 4 or 5 people to work on one particular job, and they all have to be there at the same time. So I guess the flexible work hours have to work not only for the employee, but they have to work for the management staff as well, so that they can properly deploy people to the job when it needs to be done. For admin, more productivity, superior service, and I guess I get back to making sure that the public gets what they need out of it. I noticed there we were suggesting maybe 1 or 2 days per week. I would think maybe for indoor staff, if they were going to work a 10-hour work weeks, 10-hour a day work weeks, one thing, but if they're still going to remain on an 8-hour work week, I would think 2 and 3 might be appropriate. Because when they're not at the office, if they're in that forward-facing capacity, even though the office is open longer, there's fewer people there to actually entertain walk-in traffic if they need to talk to somebody who's not necessarily working at the counter. So these are all things I kind of am thinking about. I'm for it. I just want to make sure it works. When it comes to reducing absenteeism, from my past experience, that hasn't necessarily been the case. But and the other thing I will ask at the very end is with respect to looking at the other municipalities. But I noticed on the report, there's no real I guess, financial implications, yet in the report also says staff have to work remotely with township issued equipment and computers. They can use their printer if they like. This stuff's got to be installed by our IT people. So there's got to be some soft dollars involved there, and there must be some additional equipment that's going to have to be purchased. And I'd like to find out how much money we're talking about for that aspect for those that are going to be working remotely. Other than that, those are kind of like in a ballpark what my concerns might be. But I'm hoping that that's something that when you, CAO Schmidt, and your staff get together and kind of take into consideration when you're trying to put together for the pilot. I'd much rather see the pilot succeed than have the pilot fail. And the last thing I wanted to ask is, with respect to the people that are working at home, this is by choice. There should be no tax implications. No T2200 forms, I would suspect, going to the staff that choose to work from home. They're not being told they have to work from home. Is that correct? And my last question was just with respect to your contacts. Did you come across any municipalities that went into it and then got out of it? That was the only other question I had outside of the tax firm.
Okay, thank you. CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Cabral. Lots of stuff there to unpack, Councillor Cabral. So I'll do my best, and I may miss a few things. So my apologies. So maybe starting off with. I apologize,
CAO Schmidt, and I'm sorry, Mayor Allen. I'm not expecting you to answer every single one of those, CAO Schmidt. I'm just asking that when you're putting this together, those might be some of the things you might want to take into consideration, because they will be make or break items. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. So on your last question there, Councillor Cabral, with regards to the municipalities that we've reached out to our knowledge, none of them have gone back. If anything, some of them have actually now gone to a permanent 4-day work week. So in Guysborough, Nova Scotia, they were one of the first, I believe, that I'm aware of in Canada, possibly, that went this route recently anyways. And they did formally adopt a permanent 4-day work week. It's my understanding that Zora Township now has also, they've just finished, I believe, their pilot, and they will be going to a permanent 4-day work week. There's one or two others that I think are still in their pilot phases, so we can definitely follow up with them and understand or report back as to where their results are. Absolutely, your comments about customer service, absolutely, and that's where, to be full disclosure with council, tomorrow morning we have a virtual, what I'll call bracket town hall with our staff to talk to them about this, pending council's decision tonight. The idea is, if council is supportive of moving forward with this, as you mentioned, the ball's in our court. It's up to us to make it succeed and to make it successful. And at the end of the day, to your point about customer service, people need to respond in a timely fashion. And if that doesn't happen, then those are one of those things that, those are things that will have to be addressed. To your comments about staff working in the admin building, it is, 35 hours still a work week, but in 4 days, so not quite 10 hours a day. Working remotely, having the ability to work remote, again, the idea is that it's an option for them. It's not guaranteed. There will be an application that they have to walk through, and they do have to provide proof, if you will, that they do have a dedicated workspace that they can work in. And there are some other criteria that they'll have to also abide by. So it's not a slam dunk, if you will, with regards to allowing everybody to work from home. But again, I hope that council is supportive of allowing us to try to move forward with a pilot project, allow us to have the opportunity, and I'm optimistic that we will be able to succeed with this. Your comments about coverage at the front counter, we do have some other staff that can support through the Team A, Team B process. And again, that'll be something that we need to keep an eye on and just make sure that, as to your point, that at all times, this is, as much as this is something that staff is looking for, we need to make sure that ultimately our residents are being looked after. And if there's slippage there, then we need to fix it. And if we can't fix it, that's on us. So.
Okay, other comments? Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I truly support this. I think that going to a 4-day week would help with productivity. I am working from home. I work from home. Our office closed, so I was forced to work from home, but we took our equipment home. We set it up ourselves. We had IT support by calling in. So that shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be any financial aspect on that unless they go into the office. I just take my laptop. But I do think the productivity on this would be so much better. I think the staff will be more restful. Working longer hours, but having that 1 day off is huge. And I think the extended hours of the township is good too, because the ones who work till 5 can't get there, and then so they have that extra half hour. I think it'd be good for the residents as a whole and good for staff as a whole. So I too do totally support this.
Thank you, CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Ma Chapman. You triggered a comment that I didn't answer from Councillor Cabral, so my apologies on the financial costs. So Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ma Chapman, the idea is that we're not going to incur additional costs. At this point, most staff that are already working remotely, those costs have been incurred, and any additional cost to get their office space to a point that it needs to be is not going to be a township cost. So they have been provided laptops, they have been provided cell phones, they've been provided with, in some cases, monitors to the extent they require them. Those costs, to my knowledge, have all been, or some of those costs have been absorbed through some of the COVID-19 funds that we received. I don't know what the exact number is. I'd have to circle back, but we do not anticipate having any significant costs going forward. That is part of this plan as well, is that there is no additional cost, or we minimize those costs as much as possible.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Coghlan.
Thank you, Marilyn. And 3 quick questions, I hope. In the report, it speaks to permitted but not mandated. And is that by department or by individual?
CEO.
That would be by individual. So it's not a mandatory program. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. It's not a mandated. We understand that some employees will not want to participate in this, and that'll be something that, again, when I talk about hurdles, those are things that we'll have to talk about and figure out a path forward.
Follow on.
Also, it speaks to ad hoc opportunities. So I'm assuming that means not the admin center and not home. And I'm curious if the municipality has come up with other options for working remotely.
CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Coghlan. The idea of the ad hoc remote was just, it wouldn't be happening on a regular basis. It would just be happening maybe once a month or once every couple of weeks or once a year. That was the idea of the ad hoc, being able to work from home on a given day, and not a formal agreement where an employee is working 2 or 3 days a week, every week remotely. It's on an ad hoc basis.
Anything further?
Yes, just lastly, the report to come back to council in September, the information that you would be presenting to council, how are you or staff anticipating garnering this information, and what thresholds are you looking to report on?
CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Coghlan. So again, great question, and I think that goes back to some of the comments that Councillor Cabral made, is just, again, ensuring that our customer service levels are not impacted, continuing to ensure that productivity levels are not impacted. And I think what we'll do is we'll likely reach out to some of those other municipalities that have gone through this and get a sense of some of the measurements that they've utilized as well. Again, a learning process, and I think, again, at the end of the day, that's something that senior management will be hopefully meeting tomorrow or if should council approve this, and charting a path forward. And I'm happy to share further information as it comes available.
Follow on?
Just lastly, I do value the information that was brought forward through the staff survey. Would you be looking to conduct another or similar staff survey in September?
CEO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Coghlan. I believe that is something that we are planning on doing, and I believe that's what most, if not all, of the other municipalities that I've spoke of, they did do another survey 2 or 3 months in to try to assess where staff's current, desire was at that time. So,
thank you.
Okay. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Marilyn. Just a quick point through you to CAO Schmidt with respect to, the cell phones. 2 questions come to mind. I know that I can phone the cell phone, but I don't know what the current process is when someone phones the office and it's going to go to an extension. Is it going to sit there till they come back, or is the phone system robust enough to forward it to them? And I know we're supposed to be getting a new system. Will it be capable of doing that? I would suspect that it currently is. One, and what would be the situation for us if somebody lived in an area where cell reception, we know that it happens, is poor? It might be remote, but it could happen. Would township have to incur the cost for a landline, or would that be something that unfortunately the member would have to just simply agree to use their own phone? So just the 2 questions, if you could tell us how that works. Thank you.
CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. So Councillor Cabral, on the cell matter, that is one of the things that the staff member or the employee, when they're filling out their application for this, essentially they would have to ensure that they have reliable internet and or cell coverage. So if that's not available, then this option would not be available to them. For cell phones, my understanding, and I'm not sure if our IT coordinator is on the call here tonight, but we have implemented Zoom phone. So essentially people you don't even have to have a cell phone, to be honest with you. If you call my extension, it will either go to my cell if I have a cell, or it will go through my actual computer and I can answer the phone through my computer. Again, to your point though, if the coverage of the internet is not reliable, then that will be a deciding factor as to whether the employee can actually work from home.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Maude Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to shed some light on the phone. So when I work from home, we are on a program called WebEx. I don't know if you know it. So I don't have a phone or cell phone, and mine's all through the computer. So the technology is there if we need to upgrade or whatever like that. Just giving a comment.
Did you have further comment, Councillor Cabral?
Sorry, Mayor Allen, no, I don't. I got a cat here who's looking for attention.
Okay, so good discussion. So the motion is that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding flexible work arrangements, compressed work week dated April 6, 2022 be received, and the council approve the flexible work arrangement policy attached as Appendix A to this report, and further that a compressed work week and extended municipal office hours of operation be implemented in April 2022 for a 5-month period with a report back to council to follow. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We look forward to seeing this work. And next we go to 8.11, which is the Springwater Farmers Market Elmvale operations update. May I have mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Hanna and Councillor Maude Chapman. Councillor Hanna, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we'd all agree that something we'd like to see stay operational is the farmers market in Elmvale, but I can't support doing it at the expense of taxpayers. The suggestion or recommendation to hire 2 part-time employees to run it, I think would be a political decision and not a business decision. So if there's another way that the people that use the market can come up with some way that they can make it happen, we can support it. As everybody knows, they get used to the community hall there, the hydro, the parking lot, and so on. They just need somebody to organize it or organize it themselves, but I don't think it should be done at taxpayers' expense.
Thank you. Other comments? I see Director Spagnol has come on and CEO Schmidt. I'll let you both have a response or comment and then go to the other cards.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to provide a response to Councillor Hanna's point, really the purpose of the recommendation is to get authorization from council to try to retain 2 people to go and provide for setup at the market garden. However, the first option that staff wants to look at is seeing if there is any arrangements that could be made with the high school to try to retain and try to round up some high school volunteers, some students to help with market setup, so that those hours could go to their volunteer hours as part of their education. The reason why the recommendation has come in this way is that the market is fast approaching, and staff would like the ability to try to ensure that we do have the resources available to make sure that setup for the market, for the farmers market, can go forward. That's the background and the context to the recommendation, but staff has every intention to work with the school to try to have some student volunteers work and provide for their capabilities for the farmers market setup.
So just before I go back to Councillor Hanna, CEO, did you have anything to add before I go back?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just further to Director Spagnol's comments, I have had a recent meeting with the principal at EDHS regarding this and trying to get full support, which he will support, or he has supported this. The challenge is, as we know, is that we do need a firm commitment from students, and at this point we don't have that. So that is something that we will work on over the next couple of months here, assuming council is agreeable with moving forward with this. Because the intent is to try to minimize the cost to the taxpayer, if you will. Understanding, so the report, as Director Spagnol indicated, the way it's written is that we want to make sure that council is aware that if you want to move forward with this, there is going to be a cost, I believe, around $5,000, give or take, to continue this. Again, that's our upset limit. We're hoping to minimize that as much as possible, but without a firm commitment from EDHS students, it's very difficult for us at this point. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor, for now.
Follow on, Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate staff's response. If the motion just read that we would support the farmers market going forward by using high school volunteer hours, I would have no trouble supporting that. But it doesn't. It's suggesting that we need to provide funding commitment to hire 2 part-time or casual employees, and I can't support using taxpayers' dollars for that. So again, as I say, if that's how council wants to go, I would suggest it's not a business decision that we're making, and I think that's what we're supposed to be trying to do here.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. Further to CEO Schmidt's comments on volunteers, would there be discussion about co-op opportunities and bringing co-op students into this on a go-forward basis? I understand that timing might be too pressured for this year, but if I could just have comment on that first.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. That is something that we can definitely explore with EDHS. In my conversation with the principal, that my original conversation, that did not come up, but I have a follow-up with him, so I will definitely bring that up and see what it is that we might be able to arrange.
Follow on, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I guess so. The number 5,000 was just, is being tossed around as to the casual component to that. When we sponsored the Maple Syrup Festival and we purchased an ice sculpture and the taffy, what was the expense to the municipality for that weekend festival?
Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through the Deputy Mayor Cogman. I believe the funding or the funding that was required for the ice sculpture alone was in the order of $4,000 to $5,000. That included the preparation of the ice sculpture, and I believe one person to go and operate the and hand out the sticks with all the maple syrup on it. So I believe it was in the order of $4,000 to $5,000 for that.
Manager Dean is nodding her head, so follow on, Deputy.
Thank you, Director Spagnell. And I do see this. I understand that this is not a one day or one weekend festival that draws 30,000 people to our main street and our only main street at this time. However, I do see this as an economic decision. This 5,000 or 7,000 or whatever it can be does drive many, many people to the main street of Elmvale. It doesn't just support the vendors of the market, it supports our entire downtown. So this money to me is well spent. It employs people, it employs hopefully students and allows them an opportunity to be employed in their own local municipality. I see this as a prosperous economic endeavor for this council. And considering that we, as this council and councils in the past, have sponsored $4,000 or $5,000 for a 1 weekend event to attract people to our municipality, I see this quite the same, and I would be happy to support it.
Thank you. Manager Dean or Director Spagnell, any comment before I go to Councillor Cabral? No. Manager Dean? Okay. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I did reach out. I didn't get all the responses I was looking for, and that's not necessarily because of staff. That may more or less be because the reply just generated a couple more questions. But I guess my question is, there is a fee structure in place, and it's used to utilized to rent the tents, utilized to by vendors to pay for their booth, their space, so on and so forth. What I didn't find out was, I kind of was trying to get an idea of how much funds were actually generated. And what I was hoping for was that these funds, I don't know where they were going before or who it was who was helping them set up before, but for all I know, they might have been paying a couple of students to do it already in the past. I don't know that. But I would suspect that the farmers market did generate funds from the space for the booths, the rental of tents if somebody wanted to rent one. So I guess my question would be, if that's the case, and it sounds to me like we're trying to get some volunteers in there, and this is kind of more or less a contingency plan, if need be, is whether or not those funds from the farmers market that were being collected in the past, can they not be used to offset the costs for the students going forward? So that was my first question. There was that one, and okay. I guess if that could be directed to Manager Dean, Mayor Allen, through you, that would be good.
Manager Dean, any comment there?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Cabral. And if I miss anything, Director Spagnell or CAO Schmidt can definitely pop in. But yes, that's correct. There is a fee structure to the market that can be paid either weekly or annually by the vendors. And that the majority of those funds do go back to the farmers market insurance. So the farmers market insurance is a separate insurance through the Farmers Market Association. And it essentially helps to cover the vendors so they don't have to be individually insured by themselves. So the question has been asked, and it is not something that can be covered under our municipal policy. So that is a separate insurance that would be required no matter how the market was operated. And that is just over $1,000 a year. And then additional funds in the past have been used to purchase tents. They have had music certain times in the past, and they have had students in the past that have received an honorarium to help set up the market in the morning.
Thank you.
We certainly have to keep this going, and Mr. Simmons has continued to volunteer his services from the administration side. I think using students and going to try to maximize that source is a very positive idea. What about the idea of supplementing that to the extent necessary for funds from the BIA? Because it does generate business to the businesses up there. I understand they have funds that could be potentially invested in such things. So maybe they'd be interested in paying whatever costs had to be incurred outside of student volunteer help to make this happen. Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and you've just triggered a question. Previously, there was meetings from the BIA that I had sat on, and through you maybe to Councillor Cabral or to staff. Unspent funds, understand that the council or the municipality does support the BIA with funding. What happens to the funding? Is that rolled over into a reserve to be spent in another year from? Oh, it is. So if there's unspent funding, maybe we could ask the BIA, because I know that we do have a set amount every year within our budget. I do think that that would be an area of exploration, because I do think that the BIA could potentially feel that the market is a driver to the downtown.
Yeah. That's my point. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm certainly not opposed to Township reaching out to the BIA, but I think it's important, and maybe CEO Schmidt might be able to provide a little bit more enlightenment, but we don't really fund per se the BIA. It's done through the Municipal Act, if I'm not mistaken, and it's a percentage of their tax payable that is allocated back to the businesses that are in the catchment area for the BIA. That's actually how it works. I think they do have a reserve, because if we recall, we had a presentation not long ago where they were seeking additional funds, and I think it came from that reserve.
Yeah. CEO Schmidt, do you want to just clarify? Then I'll go to, did you have a follow-on, Deputy Mayor Coughlin? Yeah. CEO Schmidt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. You're correct. There is a separate levy, if you will, that's assigned to those businesses in Elmville that are part of the BIA. So I'm trying to remember, I think it's $200 or $210 or something along those lines that they get assessed. And those funds are essentially revenues that are used by the BIA. And to the extent that those funds are not fully utilized in the year, they do get transferred to a reserve and then can be utilized for other purposes in future years.
Councillor Mott Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. A couple questions. I do support this. Of course, I would support the more volunteer aspect of it. And I know our time is crucial here because the market's going to be opening soon. So my question is, if we don't get volunteers and we don't pass for paying 2 students, I'm thinking that then this small job would rely on the township staff. Second, have we reached out to all Springwater public schools? Because the grade 8 going into grade 9 are allowed to have community hours starting in June. So I just wondered if that's an opportunity that maybe we can go to Hillsdale, Menacing, Lourdes, all that, because all grade 8s there can have community hours starting in June.
Director Spagnol, do you want to take that?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I think firstly, I think going around to the schools is something for consideration. I think we have to definitely pay attention to the age group that we're trying to hit for setup and where they need the volunteer hours and whatnot, but it's something that staff can consider. In addition to that, if the township isn't able to get volunteers, and we don't have an option, or staff doesn't have an option to go retain some casual workers, then it essentially would fall on staff. And as far as resources available for setup, just simply put, they're not there to be able to spread it around to the farmers market. That was captured in the in the previous report that went to council when the matter came forward prior to this one. So, you know, the way the report is drafted is it really sets up a contingency just so that staff has the ability to move forward with all due respect to council. This really is a political decision because of the benefits that the market, the farmers market does have and does represent to the overall community. The various options related to schools and volunteers, I believe CAO Schmidt's already talked to the high school. I think that's probably as far as we'd want to extend it, just because the kids at other schools might not be of an appropriate age to be able to go and work at the farmers market, setting up it for insurance purposes and timing and things like that.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to add on to Director Spagno's comments there, the other concern, council, is that, you know, staff did come, or we had a consultant come with our capacity limits, and staff are over capacity. And what I would suggest is that, you know, considering our current work environment, if you will, we can't just continue to add these responsibilities onto certain staff. And that will cause other conflicts, if you will, down the road. So again, the intent here was to try to indicate to council that if you're supportive of moving forward with this, there is a small cost, if you will, in order to continue with this. You know, staff would love to continue to help where we can, but we do provide a lot of in-kind services for a number of associations, and we're happy to do that. But again, staff are being pulled in many different directions here. And as I mentioned, our current work environment will no longer allow some of those things to happen. So again, this is why the report is written the way it is.
Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. And as I said, we'd all like to see this continue, but I can't see it continuing at the expense of taxpayers. I would suggest if we could put this off until staff have got a response back from the high school, then we can make a decision as to whether we want to spend taxpayers' dollars to keep the Elmville Farmers Market operating. To approve this agenda tonight item where it says they're asking for funding to support 2 casual positions, I think we've made a commitment that that's what we're going to do. So I would suggest that we ask staff to take this back, get a confirmed commitment one way or the other from either volunteers or, as the deputy mayor said, another group, or from the high school, come back. And then if we have to make a decision on funding, that would be the appropriate time, but not now when we don't know what the results from the high school are going to be. And the bottom line is, it's only April the 6th. The farmers market is not going to be up and running before the end of the month.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. Listening to the conversation here, I'm just wondering, Mr. Mayor and members of council, whether there's an opportunity for staff, myself, to engage the BIA to see whether or not they would be interested in possibly, as you mentioned, funding 50% of this cost, and the other 50% could potentially be drawn from our economic development reserve until we've been able to actually solidify some kind of commitment from the EDHS public school or high school, sorry.
So going forward with an amendment as such, is that what you're saying, suggesting, CEO Schmidt?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, if council is supportive of trying to continue with the Elmville Farmers Market, that would be what I'm suggesting, is approach the BIA, see if they would be supportive of funding, at least for this season, 50% of those costs, and the township would pick up the additional 50% or the remaining 50% and fund it through the economic development reserve, so there's no impact on our taxpayer.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin, and then Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's unfortunate that we're in this position. I also value the volunteerism that has taken place to get us to where we are today. I think that regardless, I think that staff is going to continue to negotiate and to continue to pursue opportunities to lessen the financial burden to the municipality. However, I would like to ensure that this does move forward, that the farmers market does open as soon as possible, or as soon as it is scheduled to. My question was, if if we were to defer this to our next meeting of council, does that impede the hiring process? Does that, my first question is, when is the farmers market scheduled to open?
And does that impede the hiring process is, I think, what your next question is. So Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through to Deputy Mayor Cogman. So the farmers market opens on June 17th. So, delay in this case here would definitely put some stresses on the recruitment process to post and that sort of thing to try to attract individuals to come in and to work to go and bring in students and whatnot. So it would compress that time frame and put some stress on the process to try to have people available for setup. Say if we were going to April 20th, that pushes it out 2 weeks. And I guess, going into May, that gives us about, about 7 weeks to line something up to try to get the help needed if we were to be able to line something up or come back on the 20th of April. So it definitely would put stresses on the recruitment process.
Follow on, Deputy Mayor.
That's my last comment. At the end of the day, even if we weren't able to obtain volunteers, this is something that I would like to see move forward, even if there is a cost to the municipality, because I see there being a greater benefit to the municipality with this. So I will be supporting this moving forward.
Okay, I think we can take this to vote then on the basis that staff will continue to try to maximize the use of volunteerism and with an approach to the BIA. So before we go to vote, Councillor Cabral.
Yes, Mayor Allen, I'm sorry. I think you did say you would come to me next. I would like to see the farmers market continue. I really would. I think it does benefit Elmvale. It's on the Friday. Some of the local folks do go there, and there might be even some folks from out of town that frequent it on occasion too. It sounded to me like CEO Schmidt was merely suggesting that if we put it over to the next meeting, there might be an opportunity to see if BIA likes to jump on board, which would just be a deferral for a couple of weeks. We're looking for students. Whether we hire them or whether they volunteer, chances are we're going to try and get them from Elmvale High School. And as a matter of fact, there are grade 8s in Elmvale High School. That's where they moved them all. So I'm just wondering if it's that big an inconvenience to put it over to the next meeting, and then we'll know whether BIA wants in or out. We can still keep moving forwards because I'll be supporting it going forward as well too. But I'm okay with deferring it to see if the BIA will jump in and pick up half the tab.
Okay, so I'm then understanding that there's an amendment proposed by Councillor Hannah, seconded by yourself, Councillor Cabral, to refer this to staff to come back with the answers, further information on the next council meeting. Is that correct? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Any questions before we vote on that? Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you. I do just want to note potentially the timing of the next BIA meeting, which I believe is held closer to the end of the month. So I would recommend possibly not putting the next council meeting date in the motion. That way it gives flexibility to go with the BIA's meeting schedule.
Okay.
Mayor Allen, that does present a problem because I think the BIA meeting will be after our next meeting. And then it'll be like Director Spagnell had said, it'll be further down the road. Is there some kind of mechanism we could put in place where we can move forward with this tonight and have something attached to it that says we will have staff reach out to the BIA and see if they would be receptive to partnering with us for half the $5,000.
That certainly would be fine by me.
Yeah, that'll
so
allow us
Clerk,
to proceed forward anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Clerk Ainsworth, then please add that.
Mayor Allen, for clarification, the amendment that's on the floor is being removed?
Yes. It hadn't quite solidified.
No, I'm just curious.
It's being revised.
Mayor Allen, I do have a possible amendment prepared. Should
Go
the
ahead,
mover and
please.
seconder, that the motion now before council be amended as follows: to add, and that staff be directed to also seek possible funding from the Elmvale BIA for the hiring of 2 casual positions. Period, sorry. That was the end of the sentence.
Okay, is that okay to the amender? Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. And the main motion then, please, clerk.
The main motion would read as amended that the report from the planner regarding the Springwater Farmers Market, Elmvale Market Operations Update dated April 6, 2022 be received, and that staff be authorized to proceed with the recruitment of a maximum of 2 casual positions to assist the farmers market Elmvale as needed, and that staff be directed to also seek possible funding from the Elmvale BIA for the hiring of 2 casual positions.
Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.1, information reports. Can I have a mover and seconder to get these on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. Any questions with respect to these 1 through 5? Councillor Hannah?
9.3 and 9.5, please. Pull them, please.
Okay. Okay, this isn't like action report, so we'll just go ahead and 9.3 and 9.5. Go ahead, Councillor Hannah, with respect to sub 3.
Okay, thank you. 9.3, I'm looking for, it's hard working with 2 different computers, and piece of one's an old piece of junk. The bottom line is I'm looking for the objective in the county review for mapping of agricultural land. And maybe the director, Spagnol, can tell me exactly where I read it.
Where you read what? That's 9.3. The Simcoe.
Yes, the objective of the county mapping to do with agricultural farmland.
Okay, we'll start with Director Spagnol.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through to Councillor Hannah. The objective of the agricultural mapping review process for the county's municipal comprehensive review is essentially to refine the mapping to reflect agricultural areas as identified by the province. The idea is to establish an agricultural system to protect agricultural land and the agricultural industry. Staff in this report has essentially stated that based on the scope of the project and based on the comments that were submitted through the process, that their staff does not have any further comments, as agricultural lands have been removed from the settlement areas, so there's no overlap of agricultural areas into settlement areas. And essentially the mapping process that was established by the county was an interactive mapping process whereby you could use topographical imagery and edits to provide any comments and any corrections that would be required through the process. And really the purpose of the report is just to canvass council as to whether or not council would like to forward any comments to the county with respect to the agricultural component and the refinement mapping for agricultural areas.
I could just add to that before going back to you, Councillor Hannah. Today I was invited to attend a meeting with the Simcoe County Federation of Agriculture, the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, and the county to, at the initiative of those organizations, to communicate with county council about the process of specifically reviewing the agricultural mapping in detail and getting comments to the county in the MCR process, and basically how much can be adjusted by that exercise. The conclusion was that I believe the Simcoe County Federation of Agriculture is going to be communicating, is going to continue to communicate with farmers to have specific instances where the agricultural mapping that exists doesn't make sense in the opinion of the individual farmers, and the county is looking for specifics of those examples. And there is a county workshop that's happening on the 12th of April to follow up on the municipal comprehensive review findings, of which this forms a part, but the agricultural mapping component is not going to be reviewed in detail until further down the road. There is a date of April 20th for submissions of comments, but today at this meeting, the county said that that's not a hard and fast date. So there will have to be a mechanism for communicating further to farmers to review that mapping and get comments back to the county, with the hopes of having the county support some adjustments and incorporating those adjustments in the MCR process. Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Director Spagno. I just want to read the comment that I was looking for. It says here, the scope of the work for the agricultural mapping component included refinements to the provincial prime agricultural mapping with the objective to ensure that prime agricultural lands are excluded from settlement areas as delineated within the county's official plan. So my point being, if you could help me here, it's not to allow development on agricultural land, it's to prevent agricultural land from being developed by removing from the settlement area. Is that correct?
Director Spagno?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Hanna. The purpose is to ensure that the mapping is accurate. The policies with respect to agricultural areas are not intended to take effect inside of settlement areas. So in any instances where you've got the agricultural areas encroaching into settlement areas, the purpose and the scope of this is to ensure that those lands are actually removed from that mapping, because the settlement areas have a separate set of policies with respect to development. So it's really to refine the mapping.
Sorry, thank you. And through the mayor to you, if I can respond. But the point is that this is to protect the agricultural farmlands, not to remove them from the settlement areas to make them in a position where they can be developed, correct?
Director Spagno?
Through Mayor Allen to Councillor Hanna. I would say that, Councillor Hanna, you're correct that the purpose of the agricultural area mapping is to protect farmland. Most definitely. But it's to better define where the limits of development are with respect to settlement areas versus that flowing into agricultural areas. So it's kind of twofold.
Well, thank you. My point was that wasn't the purpose of this, I was going to object to it. So thank you very much.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Director Spagno, or you may even know the answer to this one yourself, Mayor Allen, as being a member of Simcoe County Council, but is this something that is driven down from the province? Is that where this directive came, and is that why they're undertaking this exercise?
Yes, but I'll let Director Spagno answer it from the planning perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. Councillor Cabral, you're correct. The provincial policies required the county to move through the process to identify the agricultural areas and refine its mapping by July of 2022. So this is a top-down approach where provincial policy is mandating that the county go through this process.
Okay. Item 5, Councillor Hanna?
Thank you. Item 5 is the, I better read the right title here. Just give me a second, please.
It's the Snow Valley Yorkwood Limited Springwater Business Park.
Thank you for saying the business park, because I think that's important. So I'm sorry, I need to read this because I need it to be on the official record. In our Springwater official plan, section 12, it says industrial policies. And then in section 13, it says business park policies. This is the Township of Springwater's official plan 13.1.2. The Highway 93 400 interchange is the only location which met the minimum township criteria for space extensive business park. This site has several existing industrial and commercial uses which require good highway access. The subject lands consist of poor agricultural lands, level topography, good access to hard surface roads, comprise non-agricultural lands, non-aggregate lands, non-sufficient wood lands, excellent transportation linkage in every direction, and is relatively isolated from concentrated residential land uses. My point being that based on the report that we're reading here tonight at 9.5, it doesn't seem to be consistent with the official plan when it refers to where a business park policies and where a business park should be located. And further, that's in our official plan at 12.3.6, it says generally industrial uses shall not be permitted on lands designated agricultural. However, OMB Order 2575, in the event that such is proven unavoidable, only lands which have low potential for agricultural products abutting an existing settlement area will be considered. And I'm sorry, but I need to go on. This is information, as I said, it has to be in the public record, in my opinion. Section 17, agricultural policies. The township contains sufficient areas of land which have historically been and remain devoted primarily to agriculture. The agricultural classifications of land shall mean that the predominant use of the land in the area so designated shall be for agricultural purpose and farm-related uses, which may also include reforestation, forestry, hunting. Policies relating to agricultural lands are based on the recognition that agriculture is the most important segment of the township's economy. The agriculture industry must be protected in recognition of the increasing pressures from urban type development on such lands and the danger of encroachment of non-agriculture uses into agricultural areas.
Okay.
The rural landscape and the built heritage resources which contribute to it must be protected. The objectives to maintain available lands for agriculture use on long-term basis, to promote conditions which encourage the efficient operation and economic viability of agricultural operations within the township, to keep to an absolute minimum those uses that are incompatible, disruptive, and or competitive with farming activities and practices, to encourage good farmland stewardship practices, to encourage the preservation and conservation of heritage resources which contribute to rural landscape. And it goes on with permitted uses and so on. And I don't want to read the whole document here, but permitted uses of an agricultural land shall mean that prominent use of land in areas to designated shall be general and special.
Councillor Hanna.
Yes.
Councillor Hanna, you're making a statement, but what is there a question for this?
Yes, there is a question, and if I just want this on the official record, and not only is this our official plan, we paid a consultant, WSP, and they came forward and they basically echoed the same things that are in this document that's our official plan. So my point being is agriculture is the main economical industry, if you like, within Springwater Township. We have to protect agricultural farmland. So my question, if you want me to move ahead, then sir, my question now is, I'm gonna get back out of here. In the report that we received here tonight, firstly, there's a motion in there that council should consider, and that is to support an MZO for development of an industrial zoning of farmland, agricultural farmland to industrial. So my point being, why is that motion in there when our official plan says that that is not the location for the province or for this township to be creating an industrial park? So why is that motion? There's my first question.
This relates to an item, as you know, that was supposed to be delegated tonight and isn't being delegated tonight. So, I don't think we should be discussing that until, if, as and when it does come back forward in front of us.
Well, I disagree with you, Mayor.
Point of order, Mayor Allen. What you just described is part of this document. It's on the table. And we can discuss it, sir. And I think Councillor Hanna has every right to read what he likes and have his allotted time to do so. And I think if he was posing that question, Mayor Allen, with all due respect, I think he was posing it to the Director Spagnol. He wasn't looking to you for a response, sir.
Well, and I was giving an initial response, and then I will direct it to Director Spagnol. Director Spagnol, and then Deputy. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
With consideration of our Ward 4 councillor not being in attendance tonight, and this discussion would be pertinent to her information, and as this has been pulled, I would like to defer this conversation to a time where there could be a delegation being brought forward. I think that there is, like you've said, if we defer this, there would be no decision of council being made this evening, and this conversation could happen when all members of council are present.
Yes.
Well, point of order, Mayor Allen. This is document. This 9.5 is on the council report tonight, and we're being asked to receive it. It wasn't withdrawn. It's on there. The delegation that we were going to receive tonight is also included in 9.5 as this motion. And again, my question is, sorry for putting you on the hot seat, Director Spagnol, but my question is, why is this being supported, if you like, as an industrial park when your earlier report says the only place for an industrial park in Springwater Township is the location I identified at 93 and 400 Highway?
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
No, my questions for Director Spagner are further to Councillor Hanna's questions about 93 and 400 regarding servicing NVCA and MTO constrictions on said industrial park.
Director Spagnol.
Thank you, Marilyn. So just for clarification to Deputy Mayor Coughlin, are you seeking as to what, as per the report that's on the agenda tonight, as to what involvement they would have, or are you speaking to the industrial park in Hillsdale specifically?
Deputy Mayor.
My apologies for interrupting. Councillor Hanna has asked a question, and I would just like to require full follow-up, as he's indicating that there is a designation from Springwater Township as to the 400 and Hillsdale area, which would encompass Castle Drive and now most recently with Brampton Brick and Western Mechanical, the portion of the 4th. However, to my knowledge, there is no 3-phase, no high-speed NVCA restrictions and MTO restrictions that would prohibit that from being a viable industrial park. So again, my concern with this discussion happening this evening, I would like to see this deferred, as I do think that it's advantageous of us as a council to have this discussion as a whole with Councillor Moore as the Ward 4 councillor. This is directly involving her. I would like to see this conversation happen fulsome at our next meeting of council.
Yeah, I fully agree. Fully agree. Councillor Hanna, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, I disagree. It's on the agenda. We're being asked to vote on it tonight. So if we weren't going to be voting on it, then it should have been pulled. But the bottom line, it's on the agenda. Not only is it on the agenda with the deputation that was pulled, it's on the agenda with a motion in there for us to consider. So us receiving this report, in my mind, is inappropriate. And I'm also pointing out that when I read the recommendation or the report that's in the township's official plan, when it talks about 93 Highway and 400 highway. My concern is that that's talking about Hillsdale, or is that talking about number 11 highway and 400 highway in the south, or is it talking about Hillsdale? It doesn't really explain that when you read the report.
Can you clarify that aspect, Director Spagnol?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. So the official plan speaks to the Castle Drive area, and that is in the southern tip of Hillsdale. There are lands that are designated for employment uses, and that area has been flagged for quite some time for as an area to focus employment uses. To the Deputy Mayor's comment, there are some environmental restrictions and constraints in that area, along with the need for servicing and other things to make the area more viable as a business park per se. The one point of clarification I'd just like to make with respect to this report that's on the agenda is that this is an information report that there is information to outline the process that was triggered by a preliminary development application submitted by the proponent. There is not a staff recommendation in the report. The report is simply apprising council that this has been received, and it is also outlining the process that would be required if the proponent's plans were to follow Planning Act process. So I just want to clarify that it's an information report. It is not a recommendation report by any stretch.
Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just can't help but wonder why Deputy Mayor Coughlin is so concerned about the servicing up in Castle Drive and the 4th and Highway 93. When someone wants to build a business park, Brampton Brick seems to do just fine across the road. And we've got schools with hundreds of students in it that do quite well on septic tanks. And high-speed internet for a big company is not a problem because chances are they're going to use satellite. So I really find that unusual when that's not even what we're talking about.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. I'm happy to sit here for as long as it takes to debate this. However, I would argue that this discussion, and much agreeing with Councillor Hannah, is not appropriate this evening. This is not, there is no preliminary application being brought forward and the ward councillor is missing. I think that we should defer this, much like we defer many things. This is not receiving it, it is deferring it. We can make a decision at another time with more wholesome information. As for the information about
Point
the
of
castle,
order, it specifically says in the report, a preliminary development application and delegation request have been submitted by Celeste Planning, Inc. We're not on hold here. This is already before our planning department.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And as that presentation was pulled from this evening, it would only be logical that it could be coming forward at another time. This is a moot point. There is no application. A preliminary application is an inquiry. There is no application. There is no decision.
You can read the report for yourself, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you very much for your point of order again.
Okay.
However, I am not finished speaking. I now am moved to defer this to another meeting of council as these conversations can continue to happen at a more prominent time.
Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Maude Chapman. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So what I would suggest is moving forward with the vote for items 1 to 4.
Yes.
And then the deferral of item 5 could be tabled and voted on separately.
Okay, so we have a mover and seconder. Can I have a mover and seconder for items 1 to 4, please? Councillor Maude Chapman and Deputy Mayor Coughlin, that the report items listed herein be received as information. 2022 Municipal and School Board Election Award of Electronic Voting System, 2021 Statement of Council and Board Remuneration and Expenses, Simcoe County Municipal Comprehensive Review Agricultural Mapping Refinements, and ZB 2022-001D Hickling Subdivision 1296 Carson Road. All those in favor? That is carried. And with respect to item 5, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, you're moving to What again? Pete?
Defer.
To defer it to
And
defer it
the
to-
next meeting of council is fine, whenever Councillor Moore is able to attend. At the next meeting, the full council is able to attend.
Okay, second by Councillor Maude Chapman. Discussion? Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I wasn't finished making my presentation and asking my questions. So the bottom line is the deputation that was withdrawing tonight, we're still receiving it here. And in that report on slide 3, there's a recommendation for council to consider. And when somebody says to me, that's just a recommendation, a report for information, Harry Ritchie will help me here, but I can go back to previous terms on council where we were received reports, and then later on in the discussions, there would be an expenditure or something, and I would inquire, we didn't approve that, and the results were, I was told that the recommendation was inside that report, and you received that report. So my point being is, before the rest of the council wants to defer this and receive it, take a look at the motion that's in there. It says that council endorses a minister.
I know the motion. Councillor Hannah, I know the motion. We know the motion.
You may know the motion, but I have a right to read it. I have the floor, Mayor, unless you as the chair are going to stop me from speaking. Is that what you're trying to do?
We've dealt with this matter, Councillor, subject to voting on the motion to defer. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
I just want, through you, Mayor Allen, to Clerk Ainsworth, for the comfort of council, I would like to clarify that in no way is a deferral receiving any information. It simply takes this item and pushes it to the next agenda. So in no way is council making a decision to approve, deny, or receive this. We are simply going to talk about it at a different date. So there is no decision, there is no opportunity for this to move forward in any fashion other than it is being postponed to the next meeting of council when all members of council have an opportunity to be present.
Point of order, Mayor Allen. Point of order, Mayor Allen. How come you let the deputy mayor make her comments, but you don't let me make mine?
Councillor Hannah, you have been making your comments. We have been listening. There's no concern. Let me finish, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Hannah, let me finish. There's no concern about a motion that has been referred to in an information report coming forward for any vote. And it's just not, it doesn't happen with this council. It's not happening in this situation. I did let you speak and present what your idea was. Then the motion came forward to defer this till the next council meeting. Okay, Councillor Cabral. You're muted. You're muted.
I just would like to point out, back in September, when this came before us the first time, and it was going to be kicked up to the county as information, and then all of a sudden it was being kicked up to the county for inclusion in the MCR. I, at that time, asked for the inclusion of the words, in addition to that, that council did not support or endorse the delegation's application for the MZO, and that we were merely sending it forward for information. And at that time, exactly what's happening, Councillor Hannah, happened to me. The deputy mayor made remarks saying that it wasn't necessary, it was just information, it was just going forward. And now that particular letter that went to county council has opened up the door, and for whatever reason, we keep finding that delegation coming back before council within the 12-month period. So yeah, we have some questions about what's going on, and we do have some concerns about moving this forward or deferring it, and then having certain things left in there. If you'd like to have the vote on the deferral, go ahead. I'd like to vote on the original motion all by itself, to be quite honest.
No, well, we're not, you'll have an opportunity to do that when if and when it does come forward.
Yes, do you know why the delegation was pulled today, Mayor Allen? I'd like to know why it was pulled a second time.
Clerk Ainsworth, do you have any thing you can shed on that?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you, the delegate simply sent me an email stating that they were withdrawing from this evening's meeting, and there was no other information provided to me in that email.
Right. And Mayor,
Deputy Mayor, excuse me, Councillor Cabral,
yes, follow on,
I'm-
Mayor Allen.
what is that?
I'd like to follow on a question to the clerk.
Go ahead.
I would like to ask the clerk how this keeps appearing on the agenda when our policy and procedure says that delegations only come before council once in a 12-month period, and somehow or other, this one keeps popping up.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Cabral and the rest of council. The procedure bylaw states that new information submitted could result in the approval of a delegation or a subsequent delegation to council once something has already been delegated to council. Based on the motion that council had approved at the September 1st meeting when the delegation came forward, it was referred to the county to be for inclusion in the MCR process. Now, the delegate did come back, advised that they had gone forward down that path and were advised from the county that it could not be included as part of the MCR process. Director Spagnol, if you correct me if I'm wrong in that one. So based on the motion from council in September, we felt it appropriate, since that avenue was not possible, that it be brought back to council, as that would be the only avenue for them to move forward.
Yeah, that's not new information, Clerk Ainsworth. It's
Well,
the same thing.
okay,
under
Councillor
different-
Cabral, you've made your point, and that's the answer to the question. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
No, Marilyn, just calling for the deferral, and through you, I did ask for clarification from Clerk Ainsworth that there would be no decision of council this evening, and this would be simply deferred to the next meeting when all members can be present.
And you clarify that, Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And yes, that is correct. If a deferral would take place, the report would not be received. It would simply be moved to the next meeting of council as noted in this deferral specifically.
Okay.
Mayor
Councillor Hannah.
Allen, does this mean we won't get a chance to vote on the main motion?
What main motion are you referring to?
The receiving this report in the recommendation, it's recommending that council receive these reports for information. If you support,
We're dealing with this item, and the motion moved and seconded was to defer this report until April 20.
correct. If it's deferred, does that mean we don't get to vote on whether we're going to receive it tonight or not?
No, because it's getting deferred, not received.
All right.
All right, all those in favor for
A
the
recorded
deferral?
vote, Mayor Allen.
Yep. Okay, Clerk Ainsworth.
Mayor Allen,
Sorry, go ahead.
Mayor Allen.
Yes, yes, Councillor Ritchie.
I don't want to hold this up anymore. There's been a lot of discussion, but I can't help but share my my concerns for an information report and to have it says a draft motion, but that should have been stricken from the record. But that's just I'm just saying that for the record, but I'm not
Okay.
happy with this. I will agree to allow it to be deferred.
Okay, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. A recorded vote was requested by Councillor Cabral. Once I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Cabral,
No,
Councillor Ritchie,
No,
Councillor Chapman,
Yes.
Councillor Hannah,
No.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin,
Yes.
and Mayor Allen.
Yes.
That is a tie vote, which means that the motion is defeated. At this point, as the deferral was not successful, the motion on the table now would be to receive the report as information. And Mayor Allen, we would require a mover and seconder for that, please.
Okay, can I have mover and seconder to do that, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ritchie. Any further discussion?
recorded vote, please.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn. And through you, if I may, at the leisure, and Councillor Ritchie does not need to. In previous conversation and previous statement, you said that you would be supportive of the deferral and then voted not to.
Point of order, the vote's been taken, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I'd like to call the original motion and move forward, please. We're going to be here all night.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, I can't, we can't go back on that particular thing. You can ask that separately if you wish.
Thank you.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. My apologies. Was the recorded vote requested by Councillor Ritchie?
I believe so, yes. So this is to, the motion is to receive or not receive the information report number 5, right?
Correct. The motion would read that the report item listed herein be received as information. 5, Snow Valley Yorkwood Limited Springwater Business Park.
Okay, go ahead.
Once I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Cabral?
No.
It's just before we do, 1 second. Did you have one final point, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and in support of this, it's procedurally, is there anything to prohibit this report to come forward again at the next meeting? Should council receive it for information? Can we receive it again for information, considering there's no decision of council being made?
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you. Procedurally, staff wouldn't have any avenue to put the report back on an agenda unless it was deferred or referred by council. If the motion is carried and the information report is received as information, it would simply be that received as information. If the vote were to be lost and council would not vote in favor of receiving it as information, again, it would stand as that just not being received as information.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yes, so the vote, Councillor Cabral,
No.
Councillor Ritchie,
No.
Councillor Chapman,
Yes.
Councillor Hannah,
No.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin,
Yes.
and Mayor Allen.
Yes.
That is a tie vote, and that motion is defeated.
Okay, so we can move on to item 10, verbal reports. Director Spagnell, official plan update or economic development updates, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Allen. Staff will be working to bringing an information report to council to deal with the next steps in the official plan review. We are 3/4 of the way through draft policy review, so we're hoping to have a draft document out for release in the next, we're hoping 3 weeks or so, so we can start moving towards the public outreach process. That's all I have to update council with at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Midhurst Development Update to General Manager Ramdale.
Good evening, Mayor Allen, Deputy Mayor
Good
Coughlin,
evening.
members of council. It's quite a late evening. I'll begin tonight's update with the effluent main. The construction works are proceeding along Highway 26, working from the Willow towards the Wilson Drive. I do anticipate the contractor will be at Wilson sometime at the end of April. The preparatory works for the pipeline along Wilson Drive, those works have commenced with the clearing of the alignment on the western side. The construction of the effluent main along Wilson should begin in early May. So far, I'm aware of one noise and light complaint from a resident. Our site team worked with that resident and from all indications, resolved the complaint. The wastewater plant works are moving ahead, and those appear to be on schedule for a late 2022 startup. Moving on to other matters along Wilson Drive, the developer confirmed that all materials are on hand for the Snow Valley and Wilson Drive signals, and those works will commence early May. Also, the county has commenced works on the new Wilson Carson Seaton roundabout. The tasks to date have been the site clearing, fence relocations, and hydro works. While I do not have a recent timeline update, earlier indications were the roundabout construction will commence this year and extend into 2023. That brings me to the end of the Midhurst development update. Thanks.
Any questions, Council? Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I don't know if this makes any big deal, but a few councils back, Public Works had they wanted our support to allow a DLG to cross under concession Floss Road 7 so they could put in a tile drain. It was granted. The tile drain's been put in. The farm that was purchased is tile drained. It's drying up and it's going to be ready to seed. To me, that's economic development. This farmer's going to be able to plant a crop, and we're moving forward. There's no holdup. So I'm shout out to our Public Works, the people that move this along. So thank you for a job well done. I want to mention that.
Thank you, Councillor. County updates, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Municipal updates. I'll start by going to Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just have something from the Minnesota United Church on a sad note. They will be closing their doors as of April 17th. And on April 17th will be their last church service that's starting at 10 for approximately an hour and a half. And they just wanted me to let you know that if anyone wanted to attend, seats are being under reservation. So to contact Ann Arcasy at 705-734-0375 if you'd like to attend the last church service. And they're also having a garage sale on April 24th for the remaining items left in the church if anyone wanted to attend. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll call on Manager Dean to provide us with an LDD or spongy moth update, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to the rest of council. So the LDD moth has officially been renamed the spongy moth. So we have adopted that wording along with many other municipalities throughout Ontario and likely North America. So there is reference to LDD still out there, and the reference to spongy moth too, so that residents and people inquiring will be able to kind of make the association between the two. So in regards to an update, so we do have the website that is active, and there will be social media starting tomorrow and information starting tomorrow to get the information out there to residents in regards to the website page. So it can be found at springwater.ca/spongy moth, and there is lots of information on there for residents on some tips and tricks, timelines and life cycles about the spongy moth or LLD. There is also there the avenue for residents to report egg mass sightings or spongy moth caterpillar sightings. They would be able to provide information and photos there and where they are seeing their sightings, and that will help the township determine where hotspot locations are. They can also provide details, for example, if they know the type of tree, that will help us gather information not only for this year and to help predict some defoliations into the future and for future cyclical years. Staff have also been busy, so true team effort between Recreation Parks and Facilities facilities and the communications department in making all the LDD moth kits. So those will also be available starting at the end of this week. So starting tomorrow. Currently, we will be having them available at the Elmville Library has offered to have them available there, as well as the Midhurst Library and the Administration Center. So residents will be able to pick up a kit if they come into any of those locations, and the kits do include a piece of burlap that can be cut to fit. That way, depending on the size of trees, residents would cut it themselves, and it's measured out to be able to approximately approximately be wrapped around the 3 medium-sized trees. It includes a plastic scraper for the removal of the egg masses, twine, and some disposable gloves, as well as how-to and fact sheet in with the kit. That's all bundled together in a Tupperware that can be used for scraping your egg masses into and then soaking them in some water. So those are some updates at the time in regards to some of the initiatives we had put forward in regards to enhanced communications and information and the burlap kits out to residents.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. The 27th of March, the Midhurst Ratepayers Association, the Midhurst Community Recreation Association hosted a humanitarian day at the Midhurst Community Hall to raise or to receive donations for people involved in the Ukrainian war victims, if you like. I just wanted to make sure that staff were aware that was very much appreciated the cooperation in making the hall available, and also all the volunteers. And it wasn't just the MCRA that volunteered. There was people from all over, including outside in Simcoe County. Just we got 5 pickup truckloads delivered to Bradford and Newmarket, one with a large trailer. At the closing time, I think it was 8 o'clock at night, there was still so much stuff we couldn't handle it all. And the volunteers were packed in there. They worked all day long. An 18-foot trailer showed up with a pickup truck and took what they could away, and we got rid of the rest of the stuff on Monday. So I just want to say it was a major thing for helping the people in Ukraine that needed these things, but it also shows the community spirit that exists in our township and in our county. So again, I think it's hats off and thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Well done. Very well done. Any other municipal updates? Moving on to notices of motion. Any notices of motion? Item 12, any items for future consideration? Okay, moving on to 13.1, the bylaws. Now, Clerk Ainsworth, we need to tweak one of these.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen. It would be appropriate just to add after the 2022-029 RAD Adventures contract to add comma as amended. And that would reflect the changes based on the resolution that was passed by council earlier in the meeting.
Okay, can I mover and seconder to get these on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ahmad Chapman, that the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. 2022-026, stop up, close, declare surplus and sell Train Avenue. 2022-027, appoint interim building inspector. 2022-028, Clear Risk Inc. claims management software agreement. 2022-029 RAD Adventures 2022 contract as amended. 5000-348 mixed subdivision phase 1 LH 2021-004 and 5000-350 Thompson Lands. All those in favor? That is carried. Confirmatory bylaw mover and seconder. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman. That bylaw 2022-030 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on April 6, 2022, listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That is carried. Mover and seconder for adjournment. Deputy Mayor Coughlin. and Councillor Cabral that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 9:48 p.m. to meet again in a regular meeting on April 20, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you and good night.